Hey everybody, Patrick Connor here, and welcome to the Knuckles and Gloves podcast. Of course, we're doing boxing history that is inspired by recent events. I'm here with my dude Aris Pina, fellow boxing history guy, Compubox operator, and just my pal. Talking boxing history. What's up, bro? How you doing?
Everything's good, man. It was a very eventful weekend, I would say the least, what happened in boxing. So, you know,
Strange weekend.
very strange weekend.
Just a lot of a lot of showcases of the strange things boxing often has to offer, and some good, some not so good and not so pleasant, but familiar nonetheless. But I mean, yeah, dude, it was just kind of a weird weekend where we had a very strange decision. We had a very strange stoppage. We had a lot of people walking out during a main event in the dude's hometown. It was not good. It was very strange. Strange fucking things, man.
And I was working that show. So the reason why we're doing it today is because we're going to be talking about boxing's biggest robberies, or just like our biggest ones that we remember, or just ones in general, because of the shit that happened this past weekend. And the fight what I'm talking about is between what was defending champion, was a junior lightweight champ, Oshaki Foster against Robson Conceição. And what was this? Conceição is a former Olympic gold medalist, his fourth chance at a championship. So, I mean, it was not a bad fighter, but one of those guys kind of like Howard Davis back in the day who won a gold medal. It just seemed like he was always going to come up short. No shame in that. But in this fight, I was counting Conceição. As you know, I was kept working that show, and I was counting him. And bro, he threw a lot of punches. He threw over 700 punches in a fight, and normally someone with that type of activity would be, you would think, okay, well, he probably carried the action, he did this and that, whatever, right? Problem is, you need to land. Boxing's all about landing clean. It's not about throwing and flailing and everything like that. And he didn't land. All right, he only landed 11% of his punches against Oshaki Foster, who did not throw as many. He threw only 400 something to himself, but it was much more accurate and genuinely controlled the action. And if you watch the fight, it's just the same thing over and over each and every round was him just being in control and just riding everything out on his shoulders and elbows or just missing them completely and beating them up. So after ending the 12 rounds, I'm getting ready to upload for the next fight, which was the main event, and just not even thinking about what's going on. And then you hear the announcer say, these scorecards taking a little bit longer than anticipated. And sometimes even then, like scorecards take longer, but it still ends up being like a normal announcement. They just for whatever
Right.
reason
You
took
want
a
to get it
little
right, you want to it's cool.
totally. And not only that too, man. Like I mean, you got to add all that shit up. Like you just want to make sure everything's precise, like you said, Pat. So and then it takes a little bit of time, but then you hear split decision, and you just kind of wait, what? Like when they first announce a Casation gets the first score, and then you see the score, and then you see Foster's face, and you see everyone just kind of like, what the fuck? And then Foster, and then all of a sudden, in the new, I remember sitting there, and like I said, I'm getting ready for the next fight, and then I started laughing hysterically. But it wasn't like laughter of like I thought this was hilarious. It was like when you're flabbergasted at something. And so, like, you don't really have any other reaction but to start laughing. And there's a distinct thing between laughing hysterically and flabbergasted laughing. You know what I mean? And that's how I was. I'm just like, like, oh my, like, I just could not believe it. And this is the sport. This is that one sport that always, every single time when you talk to fans and people be like, oh man, I love boxing, but there's so much corruption in it, or I've seen this, or I've seen that. And it happens over and over and over. And was your first week in trying to bring friends over to watch a fight. Chances are it wasn't because it was Shakur Stevenson in the main event. But I'm just saying in general, and they witness this, how do you think they're going to react to that? You know what I mean? It was just another like, Jesus Christ, why are we still involved in the sport?
Yeah, and I guess if people are looking for a reason to not like boxing, then they're not going to like it. But nonetheless, the sport keeps giving them reasons not to like it. And I mean, frankly, it gives us a lot of reasons not to like it too. We're fucking sick. We're just dumb. But so, but nonetheless, it's frustrating. Like you said, a lot of it was Oshaki Foster, and I understand it's not always easy to see this kind of subtle defense and taking the kind of mustard off of shots by, subtly rocking back and forth rather than, yeah, it's cool to see fighters and like a punch misses and they're like, when, woo, this type of shit. Like it's whatever, but I hate to constantly reference somebody like Pernell Whitaker. It's just an easy reference to make because it's somebody everybody knows. But he was the same way where he would make opponents miss by just millimeters. And that's the whole point is that, you're riding out these punches so that you can counter or so that you're still in position and not getting punched out of position, et cetera, et cetera. That really seemed to be what Oshaki Foster was clearly doing. But the thing was that it didn't really seem to be that difficult for most people to see, except for the fucking judges, apparently. Almost everybody else seemed to see, wow, he's doing really well countering. He's kind of catching on his shoulders and on his gloves. A lot of shit Conceição's throwing. Conceição was putting forth a really good effort, like you said, but just not having a very effective consistent offense, and Oshaki Foster was consistently landing the cleaner shots, the better shots. It really seemed like he clearly won. Like super wide, I don't know about that. There were a number of rounds that were close because of what we're talking about. And sometimes those things are difficult to see. I get it, but a win is a fucking win. You know what I mean? And I also hate to be like, oh, well, the right guy won if he had gotten that split decision or whatever, because there aren't too many scenarios where I see Robson Conceição actually winning that decision cleanly. And then on top of that, sorry, dude, and sometimes I know it seems like I pick on a certain promoter or a certain network or whatever, but I just hate to see Top Rank do this more than once where they kind of like turn on their own fighter. And Oshaki Foster is going out there. He's clearly emotional post fight, as understandably as he should be. And then, he expresses that he thought he clearly should have won. Most fans thought he clearly should have won. And then his own promoter goes out and is just like, dude, they don't know what they're talking about. And it's like,
Mhm.
you don't have to go and call it a robbery, because then I know that that makes the fighter who won and that the fighter that you want to get momentum. And on top of that, I get it from a promotional standpoint. You've put money into Robson Conceição coming out of the Olympics. I get it. Like you want to propel him forward. So you don't want to take his big win and just be like, it was a shit win. You don't want to do that. I understand. But there are ways to kind of at least not invalidate what Oshaki Foster did. And that's really what it seemed like they're doing, to be honest. That's what kind of makes this an extra just fucking, in my opinion, kick in the nuts. And that sucks.
Yeah, totally. That was Aaron immediately after fight saying that the ESPN announcers were what did he say? He said that they were relying too much on the CompuBox numbers and everything like whatever. I'm not even gonna comment on that. But the thing is though is that like there's nothing that no one would even question it though. That's the thing. Like you can't question what happened. That was just like a general thing throughout the fight. There's not one person on the planet besides Conceição, maybe like his immediate family and the rest of his team members who thought that he won that fight. Even when Mark Kriegel interviewed him after the fight and was asking him, they were like, the stats show that you only landed in double digits in 2 rounds out of 12 and this and that. Do you feel like you landed more? He didn't even say that. He was just like, yeah, he was moving a lot, so it was difficult for me to hit him. In the rematch, I'll hit him more. He didn't even go out of the way and be like, no, I was definitely hitting him more and stuff like that. They were look, no, I mean, like he's even admitted as such. Like, where else?
And he just won a world title. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it's kind of like you can't really expect the guy who just got his big moment to be like, yeah, my big moment's not that big, actually. Like, no,
I
I mean, of
mean,
course not. He's not going to do
and this
that.
is nothing against him or anything like that. You know what I
No,
mean?
of
Like,
course, of course.
it's
He
just
didn't judge the fight. He just did,
totally.
he fought how he could have.
And he gave a good effort. He just didn't win a fight. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, it's
And
nothing against him at all.
nope. But again, though, this is just the thing. This is a reoccurring thing that's happened throughout boxing history that it's every time they're like, all right, for all the feel good moments that you have, stuff like that, there's always like one of those stabs in the gut that you're just like, oh, yeah, this is our type of sport.
Yeah,
But,
man.
to finish up with Foster, and I'll leave it at this, is that I feel bad for a guy like him because as I thought to myself, and then I know Cliff Roll mentioned on Twitter and a few others, I believe. Foster's one of those type of guys that like he needs a title to be marketable at all. You know what I mean? He has a very difficult style. is not the type of style that like plays out well on television usually. Like this fight didn't. I mean, it wasn't that exciting until what happened with the main event, and I mean, what happened with the decision, and there's not a lot of marketability with him. You know what I mean? It's not like Top Rank really went out of their way to like promote him a lot. Like, yeah, his fights were featured on TV, and they were thrillers in the sense that like he struggled throughout that, like he finally pulled it out at the end. So it looked like they should be able to do more, but like he was like stuck at a rock and a hard place. And like what kind of guys are gonna be looking to fight him without a title? Not many. And there's other fighters throughout history have been like that like they need that belt to be any type of marketable. And for him to get robbed of that belt like that really kind of robs him of any type of marketability. That's just not right.
Yeah, dude, and on top of that, it also, what I think that it does, apart from obviously exposing issues with officiating, which is like a whole can of worms I don't really want to open. I'll go on a tangent and I don't want to do that. We got limited time. but but apart from exposing structural issues with the officiating, apart from doing that, it really nullifies some good work that Oshaki Foster has done in the last year and a half in his career. And like you said, he's had to work triple hard. He doesn't have big knockout power. He's not a flashy fighter in that regard. He's a technician. He's a guy who does a lot of subtle work that's not easy to see and not sometimes easy to appreciate. And in the last year or so, he's gotten a couple of bigger results. Like in his last two fights, he closed both fights really strong. Kind of won them by the skin of his teeth, but also proved himself more exciting than I think people thought of him before. He took a gamble in signing with Matchroom several years ago, and I thought he was still with Matchroom actually when we were talking about it. I didn't realize he actually signed with Top Rank. And so I took the criticism after the fight differently, and I was like, oh damn, he's just salty because he's with Matchroom. And then when I realized he was Top Rank, I was like, oh, that's even worse. So I mean, it really nullifies some of the work that he's done, and that's unfortunate, dude. I hope that he gets another. I hope that he gets a rematch. Number one, I know that they're weird about all that type of shit nowadays, but they're gonna probably try to capitalize Conceição and something else. But regardless, I hope he gets a rematch. I hope he gets another big opportunity because he deserves it.
1,000%. But I mean, judging by Bob Arum and his comments after the fight, immediately after the fight, I'm not talking about the rant that he had that came out on boxing scene, but when he was going on in this, he was like, "Oh yeah, everybody thought it was 7-5, 7-5 either way." I highly doubt that. And then he said, they were like, "Is there going to be an immediate rematch?" Which obviously there should be because everyone's clamoring for it. And Bob said, "We'll see." So
Yeah, so that means that they're at least not going to shoot for it. Could it wind up be happening in the sense that that's just their best option? Kind of hope so, but that means that they're not going to be gunning for it, unfortunately.
sure.
Anyway, so we obviously disagree with the fact that Robson Conceição won that fight. We thought that Oshaki Foster won that fight. Bad decision, a decision that we don't like. What are some other decisions from? I mean, dude, go back as far as you want, whatever. Although obviously, it probably helps to have video if you're going to
Sure.
be talking about bad decisions. But I mean, what's one that immediately comes to mind for you?
All right. With all the Whitaker talk, I guess that came on Twitter immediately after the Shakur fight, um, in comparisons and whatever it may be and stuff like that. I guess the first one you have to bring up might be, well, I mean, Whitaker was robbed a few times in his career, so I guess you can kind of compound these into one little segment. But the first one immediately come to mind, and the one that everybody remembers too, because you got the Sports Illustrated cover, just the bigness of the fight. And the fact that it's not available on YouTube in its entirety anymore, that really pisses me off. And that's Whitaker Chavez.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have a good copy of that somewhere. But yeah, they play musical chairs with some of these fucking fights sometimes, dude. So
So,
dumb
like,
because
you
they're
can
not
find
doing anything with
highlight
them.
clips of it, and I mean, obviously, it gives you a good sense of what happened in the fight and stuff like that. But like the entirety of like from the ring walk all the way to the very end of the announcing, any like pre-fight analysis, yada yada yada, any of that type of shit. Anytime someone uploads it, apparently it gets taken down immediately. Like it's just one of those type of fights. But that one, I mean, like out of all the Whitakers, robberies and ones that are just kind of like yeah stuff like that, that's the one that immediately comes to mind because well That's the most high profile one. That was a big event. That preceded me being a boxing fan. That fight happened, right before I was on the cusp of really knowing what was going on. But I do remember that Sports Illustrated cover because I think my dad had it, and I saw it in like barbershops and shit around stuff like that. And just when you read about it and then you see what actually happens in the ring and all that, it's just one of those fights that you just kind of like.
Yeah, dude. Even like, and it's kind of an anecdote that gets retold too. But even a lot of the Mexican fans that were obviously rooting for Chavez had been turned into, I don't want to say Whitaker fans, but they were rooting for Whitaker by the end of the fight and in a number of places. And I remember that there was a writer in, I think, San Antonio, or I am pretty sure it was San Antonio, who went to a theater and watched the fight in a theater because they had it on closed circuit. And basically he said that like all the Mexican fans there were sitting there cheering for Whitaker and like getting all pissed off about the decision and stuff like that. And obviously that's anecdotal, and it's probably somewhat exaggerated, but even so, it's one of those fights where, respectfully, I'm not going to lump every fucking Mexican boxing fan into a group, but from what a lot of I've seen, they're kind of just like, yeah, he did all right. Chavez did okay in that fight. They're like, they don't really want to talk about it too much because, frankly, Whitaker put his paws on him, dude. He gave him the business, man.
Yeah, he did. It's so Chavez, as he started, like he already got a part of the first of the '84 Olympians when he fought Mildred Taylor. Barely won that by the skin of his teeth. But was it for Richard Steele stopping that controversially with 2 seconds left in the fight, Chavez would have lost. Go ahead. I know you're gonna.
People will fight over that. To this day, people will fight over that.
I mean, we've discussed that fight off the air, on the air 1,000 times, and I'll always say too that Taylor, no matter the outcome post of what was going to be of his career, because clearly the beating he took from Chavez was going to last regardless, but like he deserved the win. He still deserved that win in that fight. He went through hell and back. He deserved as a champion. He got up, and Steele shouldn't have stopped it. It's been, regardless if there was 2 seconds left or whatever, he shouldn't have stopped it. But that's just my opinion, and who knows? But
If they had just grabbed Lou Duva's arm and kept him down off the apron, maybe. I don't know.
yeah, because I mean, clearly you see Taylor's eyes just glancing over there, and you see Steele, but Steele too. Like everyone says, Steele was like, "Oh, it's not my responsibility to know how many seconds left there is in a round." Well, bro, if you're in the corner and you see that, and they got the bell that was flashing over and over, signifying 10 seconds, you cannot tell me that it's like only a millimeter from your thing. You don't see that flashing in your eye. You should know it's like just different circumstances, but whatever. Back to the Whitaker fight.
See,
Like
we're about to fight over it.
it's just it's ridiculous. I mean, so back to the Whitaker fight. Like Whitaker was one of those dudes. He unified the lightweight division. He proved himself to be one of the best on the planet. Moved up to the junior welterweight division for a cup of coffee to beat Rafael Pineda, and then he moves up to welterweight. And I mean, you got to give Whitaker credit. Like anytime he moved up, he was looking for like the stiffest
And he
competition.
wasn't really a welterweight either. Like,
Not at all. No.
dude was
So
still a lightweight fighting a welterweight.
I mean, think of it in this way. Before him and Chavez fought, Chavez was already a junior welterweight. Whitaker was the unified lightweight champion. He was still just building himself as lightweight. He just kind of stopped at a junior welterweight for a half a second, then went right to welterweight. And so I don't even know if he made a defense at junior welterweight. I think he just kind of beat Pineda and moved up. But so he fights Buddy McGirt. McGirt is one of those guys that in the early '90s, late '80s, just a consummate professional and an absolute great fighter. And I think by that time he already had a shoulder injury. And regardless of
Was
that,
it the first or second fight? But I know at least for one of them, yeah. You might be right.
yeah, I don't know if it might have been both. I have no idea, but I
You
know in
might
the
be
first
right, yeah.
fight, I just know in the first fight that he ran Whitaker to like the limit, like in a very, very close fight. Like it's a brilliant fight to watch, but like Whitaker, got by on the skin of his teeth. In the rematch, he comprehensively outboxed him. But Whitaker at that point, now, like you said, he was a small welterweight, but so brilliant that he was still able to like just circumvent whoever he had to fight. But he was still looking for that one guy now that was gonna like really bring him to really bring him prominence. And at welterweight at that point in the early '90s, I'm trying to think off the top of my head who was around that would have like done that in that division. I can't really think anyone else would have done that, right? Who else was what's weight champion?
In the early 90s. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
Felix Trinidad won the IBF title in the
Yeah, well, I mean, by that time, Whitaker. By that time, Trinidad was just like barely a name. Like he just started. Yeah, that was explosive of him beating Blocker, but no one was clamoring for those two
yeah,
to
and
fight
Don
each other.
King wasn't gonna, yeah, he wasn't
Yeah.
gonna do that. Yeah, no. No, there weren't any other fighters really at
Yeah.
welterweight. He would have had to move
Oh
up
yeah, and
again.
WBA at that point would have been Crisanto Espana, who had beaten Meldrick Taylor. And again,
Yeah,
what was that going to really bring? So
no, he
Chavez,
would have had to move up again.
exactly. Chavez was the moneymaker. You know what I mean? Like that was the money fight. I mean, guys like Terry Norris, who was at junior welterweight, was calling for Chavez fight. So think of it that way. And then, Whitaker, which again, you could do a whole show on this whole fucking fight in the pre-fight and everything, how it came together. Whitaker, who was an HBO fighter, left HBO for this one fight, and I know they were not happy about that. And nor was his promoters or anything. Went to Showtime and gave them everything. He was like, "Listen, I'll fight him in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome," which is basically like fighting Chavez in Mexico when you really think about it. And everything is their favor because Whitaker would just want that fight. He wanted the chance to be pound for pound number one and solidify it against a guy like Chavez. And I mean, you watch that fight, and it's one of those more brilliant fights that like each round he gets stronger. From like the first round, Chavez does bully him around a little bit, and Whitaker is still getting his footing and just figuring out the pacing and all that. And you got Ferdy Pacheco, Bobby Chez, not so much Steve Alper, but Pacheco and Chez, especially because they got the favoritism. Chavez is their guy. He's been featured on Showtime for a number of years now. And Whitaker coming over across the street and the way he's backpedaling, oh yeah, Chavez gonna break him apart, and da da da. And then Pacheco going over, yeah, yeah, Pee Wee, Pee Wee, instead of calling him Sweet Pea Whitaker. I don't know why he was calling him Pee Wee. And it's going on like that. But each round, Whitaker starts getting his footing a little bit more and starts, like you said, pow, catching him with his jab, catching him with everything else. And Chavez has no answer for it. And by the middle rounds, Whitaker is just basically pasting around where, it's a complete like shutdown.
Yeah, dude, I don't know what Ferdy was done. Dude was such a kook, man. Such a kook. Um, yeah, dude, and basically round after round, like obviously there were some rounds, and I get it, kind of like I was talking about earlier with the Conceição fight. Um, there are some times, yeah, when it looks like the defense is kind of subtle, it looks like punches are landing, etc. But when it becomes fairly apparent that even if they're not landing, they're not doing anything,
Mm-hmm.
like that's a problem for the person who, that's a problem for the other person. And it's also a problem when the person who has the defense is landing in return and like rocking the guy back on his heels, moving him around the ring, doing little twirlies and shit around him, like pop, pop, pop,
Yeah.
pissing the ref off because he's fucking running around him so much and stuff like that. Like he's making it really obvious. And that's part of what was so infuriating for so many people about this decision was that it seemed pretty plain. Everybody seemed to be like, "Oh yeah," but then a lot of people, just because they were fans of Chavez, were whatever ethnicity they were happy to see Purnell, and on top of that, a lot of people didn't like Purnell. This is another part of it that you kind of touched on, and that a lot of people, for instance, Gray Johnson, who we mention on the show
Yes.
somewhat regularly, but he makes a good point about a lot of this contemporary stuff too, like the Shakur Stevenson fight the other night, where people are talking about, uh, this you just can't appreciate what he's doing in there, and blah blah blah. And Gray brought up the point about how people might have received Pernell Whitaker in this day and age, and that's the thing is that like he gets retroactively a lot of love, which is great because at the time not a lot of people loved him. A lot of people did respect him. Like they, were like, oh yeah, he's very skilled, but man, he's putrid. I don't want to watch him. He's pound for pound the most boring fighter. Oh, blah blah blah. A lot of people were bringing up that he's a gangster, that he gets in trouble, et cetera, et cetera. Some of those things are true, but nonetheless, like it's a lot of the same type of dumb criticism that had nothing to do with anything and that weren't really appreciative actually of his style. But like I said, retroactively he gets a lot of love. That wasn't the case at the time. So, I mean, a lot of people at the time were kind of just like, well, he left himself open for this because he talked a lot of shit type of stuff. And it's like, if you win the fucking fight, you win the fucking fight regardless of the shit you talk, man. But that's the robbery.
Totally. And so that was one of those fights, and then like that was the first time also after the fight that we saw Chavez like really whining, and showing like that instance, like because he didn't get the favoritism. He was like, oh, he's running and this and that, and the judges don't know anything, blah, blah, blah. And then that all got like really taken to a whole new level after he lose to Frankie Randall for the first time, I suffer his first loss and just kind of really lose it and have his poor interpreter. Well, she would. I mean, when I call her poor, she was going even more, getting more emotional than Chavez was at that point. I thought she was going to attack Richard Steele, but it was just a fiasco. But I mean, that solidified Whitaker as number one, and it's kind of showed him that regardless that he didn't get the W, he didn't suffer a loss. It was just a bullshit draw, which getting one against Chavez out there, which is practically a win because no one was able to do that with Chavez at that point. And and that was after that happened. I'm going to tell you, that's when I became a boxing fan. And to touch on your point that you just made about what Grace said and how people felt about him back then. Watching Whitaker fights back then as a kid, it was not something that was just like, the most exciting endeavor to do on a Saturday night. There's a lot of times I didn't make it to round 12 because I was still young and trying to keep up. And, and those fights would start at 10 p.m. or some shit. It just
Yeah, you guys on the East Coast
happened.
get screwed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so like I remember I tried watching his first fight. His first fight I remember really watching with my dad was against Gary something, some guy
Gary
from
Jacobs.
Gary Jacobs. And that fight was not good. You know what I mean? Up until Whitaker finally dropped him like twice in round 12 or whatever, that was not a fun fight to watch. And Jacobs was just like a pedestrian, meandering guy that the Ring magazine I remember was kind of making fun of beforehand about getting a title shot. The fight against Vasquez was interesting because Whitaker moved up and Vasquez was a legit champion. But again, that wasn't a fight that was like overly exciting. It was just fascinating to watch Whitaker, slip and slide against a guy so much bigger. Then you had the Wilfredo Rivera fights, and then that brings you to the De La Hoya fight. And by that point, I think like I was like I kind of touched on one time off topic, off the show. I was like, a lot of people were just happy, even though it was a BS decision in retrospect. I mean, depending on how you look at it, I think a lot of people were just relieved that Whitaker finally lost and that he lost to a guy like De La Hoya.
Yeah, and I think like kind of there was a similar sentiment, uh, like kind of like with the Chavez fight, where not everybody appreciated him, not everybody liked him. A lot of people, and that's the thing is that you run the risk of when you're a shit talker. Obviously, he backed it up, but he backed it up in a slightly different way. He didn't have the same type of punching power as even a Floyd Mayweather. And so, he didn't have that option of ending fights, although he was an underrated body puncher. He had a number of body punches that were, or he had a handful of body punch knockouts, I should say. But there were a number of fights in which body punching was a big part of his repertoire. And I would imagine that a number of fighters would tell you that his body punches were better than you think. But nonetheless, he obviously wasn't a big puncher. And so ending a fight that way wasn't really an option. So between the Chavez fight and the De La Hoya fight, there were a number of fights that were either closer than they should have been, or people were kind of just like, fuck, dude, how long is this going to go? Like, how long is this guy going to be doing this for? He's an 84 Olympian and we're in like the fucking mid 90s here, dude. What are we doing? But that's how good he was. And on top of that, like we said, way over the weight that he should have been. Pulled the Dios Bellis Hurtado fight out from the fire barely, even though what's his name, Arthur Mercanti Jr. almost got that guy killed. Like how many other fighters for crying out
I
loud?
actually just forgot about that fight. That was a great fight.
He damn near lost that fight. Came really, really close to losing that fight, and I mean, had to moita the guy to fucking win it. It was awful, dude. Terrible.
That
That's like one of the worst knockouts you can watch.
Oh, dude, and Mercanti is just standing there. Whitaker is literally just over.
Yeah, even the commentators are just like, okay, like fucking step in any moment. It's just like boom, boom,
That fight
boom.
was in Jersey, wasn't it?
Yes, Atlantic City. But I
Yeah.
I
Where,
remembered it was
where is
Mercanti
Larry? Where's
Jr.
Larry? Where's Larry Hazard when you need him?
I remembered it was Mercanti Jr. without looking because that shit was memorably bad. Just like
I
the
mean,
fucking Ruddock Dokes. Like that dude was just the late stoppage master.
Bro, Mercanti Jr., like if something bad was something like what that was gonna happen, it's usually involving him. Can't remember poor Yuri Foreman over there. No, 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 you don't get out there and fight.
Oh my God. Yeah, the,
Poor
the fool's like, my knee's broken, it doesn't work. And he's just like, come on, champ. And it's like, what?
Yankee Stadium, be a proud New Yorker, go out there and fight.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he's be a pro or whatever he's saying. And it was like, his knee's broken. And then he gets fucking murked
And
the next
fighting
round, the
Miguel
poor
Cotto,
guy.
I mean, of all people, man, like, oh, just Jesus Christ. So,
Oh God. Yeah.
yeah,
Not a good referee at all. Not a good referee. But in any case, yeah, dude, he barely pulled that shit out. And he almost dang near had to kill Hurtado to do it. Thankfully, Hurtado came back and still had a career after that. But a lot of people still believe he beat Oscar De La Hoya. I mean, I'm one of them. I'm not saying I don't know if it was a robbery because it was a pretty close fight. But I mean, there were a lot of those kind of flurries and kind of type of shit from De La Hoya that's looked good, but not really anything landed.
a ton of them, in fact, man. It was like, as a kid, and I was a De La Hoya fan as a kid. He was one of the fighters that really got me like excited to watch boxing. Um, it looked more impressive to me because I wasn't there trying to count punches or like really knowing what was anything like that. But his flurries looked impressive to me, and it had me thinking he was doing more than he was. Because Whitaker, like you said too, and when De La Hoya would do like the crazy flurries, Whitaker was just sitting back and shimmying and moving, doing all these things like that, and trying to roll with it, and more or less making De La Hoya miss, but not making him pay either. Like he was just doing that, and then he would
That was the
stop.
problem. Yeah.
And then the bell would ring, and Whitaker would like, exaggeratingly like, shake himself back to the corner or do something funky, and everyone would just be like, oh. But like throughout the fight, though, when Whitaker decided to throw, he was more accurate. He did drop De La Hoya legitimately, even though Oscar was kind of off balance, was legitimate knockdown, and like he kind of corralled him for the most of the fight. I mean, not to say that De La Hoya didn't have some flurries or like he didn't have some success. He did end up landing on him here and there, but like I think what as an adult, as I've watched it, I feel like Whitaker generally controlled it, and it certainly didn't help De La Hoya either. That of all the trainers that he did a runaround with throughout his career, that he had Jesus Rivero for that fight. And that's not a knock on Rivero. He was definitely a great trainer in his own right, and you know for his style and stuff like that. But the guy had a very defensive style, and not the type of style you want to use against a guy like Whitaker. And that was the type of style Oscar employed in that fight, obviously.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it not everybody, not every trainer meshes with a fighter or style or whatever. It just so happened that Oscar De La Hoya didn't mesh with any trainer at all ever.
I liked him with Manuel Stewart, actually. I mean,
He went through like every possible trainer. It's actually crazy how many trainers he went through. But I mean,
absolutely.
whatever. His career. But yeah, it did seem kind of like Pernell Whitaker controlled the fight for the most part. He was fairly comfortable throughout the fight, never hurt, didn't get clipped clean all that often. I get that it was a close fight, but yeah, I thought Purnell won that fight and he should have won that fight. But really, after that was when his career just and his personal life really took a nosedive. He had already been into trouble before that, but his career really kind of spiraled out of control after that.
It did, man. And it's sad too because there was still big fights from lined up. Like he came back and I think who did he fight on HBO? And this shows you too that Whitaker was much more of a humble guy than compared to like today's top fighters. Because a guy like with Whitaker's pedigree, um, it's you don't see it that a guy like that would take like an undercard fight on the undercard of Corte, fuck was it?
Lopez.
Corte Lopez, yeah.
Yeah, because
Against
Purnell and Corte were going to fight.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? And a guy that had like Whitaker's pedigree and someone like that today would usually be like, I'm not fighting on no undercard. Oh, I want my own thing. I'm coming back on pay-per-view against somebody. And like, nah, Whitaker's like, fuck it, I'll just come back and fight this guy. And like you said, he didn't look great in that fight. But all roads ahead still to fight Corte, which was a fight I was looking forward to. I'm sure you were and anyone else that was, a boxing fan back then. And but that his career was more or less ended at that point because that's I think he busted for cocaine after that fight, and then
Dude, coke's
other
in your fucking system for like a day and a half, bro. Purnell,
so
what the fuck? Come on, bro. Yeah,
I,
it's in your system for like 2 days, dude. Like,
seriously 2 days max.
Purnell,
Well,
wait till after the fight, bro. Come on. Damn.
the Trinidad fight happens years later than it should have. Whitaker was brave in that fight, but and no one really talks about this, but remember that comeback he had in like 2000 or 2001? And it was that fight on ESPN against Bajorquez. And
Well,
that's just
yeah, and that was the one where he like, stayed in his corner and was like clutching his shoulder and shit. Yeah.
like that. Yeah, yeah. And it's just sad. Like even watching that in general, knowing he was coming back and like he was just gonna be a shell of himself. And almost like any of those dudes when they came back, like when Sugar Ray Leonard came back to fight Camacho, and everyone's talking about ahead because they already just think he's gonna beat this guy, and I'm like, oh yeah, Leonard's gonna fight so and so, and he's gonna fight this one or that one, and blah blah blah, and then he gets like bludgeoned, and then before the Whitaker fight, they're talking about that, and they're like, oh, Oscar De La Hoya has expressed interest in having a rematch with Whitaker if he looks good in this fight, and other people say they want to fight Whitaker, and Whitaker's all done ho saying he wants to fight them all, and well, that was that.
Yeah, he got that like Carlos Bojorquez got that like William Joppy win over Roberto Duran.
Sure. And all those guys always get a little bit of mileage out that, if you notice, right? Like Bajorquez got a bunch of fights he never would have got, with a lot of publicity off of that fight. Um, and like another dude, remember Sam Hill, the one who knocked out David
Oh
Reed?
man, I remember that shit. Yeah, dude, because that
Yeah.
was like honestly it was like kind of sad. Like David Reed went from like just how quickly he got washed was sad.
Oh, it was
Because Sam
horrible.
Hill was like a journeyman dude.
Yeah, he wasn't good at all. I mean, just a dude who had a basic 1-2, but should never had done anything with Reed, beat him, and then like use that to win to get fights against like Jermaine to get his ass kicked in all these fights against like Jermaine Taylor and a host of other guys, usually
Yeah,
on TV. So
yeah, damn. Yeah, dude went out quick. But all right, so talking about other robberies here, at least fights that we saw as robberies, memorable robberies, bad decisions, whatever you want to call them. Today just so happens to be the anniversary of a fight that I thought was an incorrect decision for sure, and that was Paul Williams' win over Aris Lara. Just was not, and I didn't even know that. You said earlier that you counted that fight. I didn't even know that shit. Did work the punch zone. That's crazy. I mean,
we'll see how far back I go with Punch Zone, man.
yeah,
Jeez.
no shit, dude. It's a definitely a cool concept. I thought, to have like a visual representation of what you're seeing in the fight or whatever. But nonetheless, dude, that just was not the fight that I saw as far as the result, and was not the fight that a lot of people saw. In over the years, though, it seems to kind of be like the sentiment was that Williams threw a lot and like it was a close fight. At the time, it didn't seem like that. At the time, like immediately post fight, it seemed like a lot of people were like, "What the fuck was that?" Kind of like now. But I mean, I think that that's also there's a sort of recency bias. You get worked up, you get upset, oh, this fucking shit again, so I think that that's kind of what seems to happen. And then you cool down over time if you get to watch it again. You're like, all right, maybe I see where the judge. So I get it. But I actually watched that fight like not that long ago and was like, nah, Lara was dinging him around, bro.
Um, yeah, like you said, I worked that one. So like back in the day for Punch Zone, we would always be at the HBO studios. And any HBO show that weekend we would end up doing. So we were doing that one, and like I remember it for the fact that like Lara was what, he was only like 15-0 or something. He was still like a youngish pro. But he had been a part of that Cuban contingent that had just come over that were just like super brilliant. Him, Gamboa,
Yeah, he was like highly decorated, and
yeah,
and he was like Cuban fighter of the year, Cuban amateur fighter of the year, like a few years in a row or something, which is like that's a fucking big deal.
sure. There was him, there was Yuri Yorkis Gamboa, and I'm sure there was a couple others I'm missing, but I remember when they first came through, and obviously these dudes were featured on television quite often, especially Gamboa, because that guy was a fucking tornado. But
Much
yeah.
to the chagrin of Steve Kim,
Oh man,
fucking
fuck.
racist dickhead. Go
So,
ahead.
so when Lara gets this fight with Williams, you gotta remember, like Williams was one of those dudes that, like, when he came on the scene, he was like looked upon as like kind of no one wanted to fight him either. You know what I mean? Like a really dating, and I get it. And you were on
Totally.
the West Coast scene back then, right? So I
Hmm.
mean, Williams was on the West Coast scene, so I'm
Yeah,
sure
and he
you.
was with the Goosens. Yeah.
So I'm sure you heard rumblings, if not actually saw him like fight live or anything like that, right?
Yeah, I was at the Margarito fight, and I saw him a couple times. I saw the first Quintana fight, the Margarito fight,
Yeah.
maybe others, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, you're right.
And like
Yes,
Margarito fight, the Margarito fight was big one too, in the fact that like there was like a lot of rumblings before that. Williams used to kick his ass in sparring, and he said all he wanted to do was fight Margarito. And Margarito was not a guy that anyone was looking to fight either. So
yeah.
I
It was
mean,
like two avoided guys or whatever fighting.
yeah. And seeing that live, I'm assuming that like Williams. I haven't watched that in years. Williams definitely just whooped on him, right? I mean, like Margarito came on later on and stuff like that, but like the volume punch of Williams is what carried it.
I remember thinking right after the fight that Margarito should have won because he closed really strong, and that it was more kind of like a volume versus
Sure.
connect type of thing. But I'm not gonna lie, I haven't watched it since. I
Yeah.
might watch it again and feel totally different. And also, I'm not at full, disclosure. I was a Margarito fan at the
Yeah.
time, not fucking now, but was at the time.
But Williams had one of those type of styles, like he was so tall and so lanky and all that type of stuff. But like he was just a like the guy was a volume puncher, you know what I mean? And he wasn't that hard to find. Like he would just the dimensions of him were just ridiculous, and like because of that, he was hard to fight. He would just throw a billion punches, over 100 punches around if necessary, and being 147 that had the type of body that can probably reach 175 to
Yeah,
even
he was like
cruiserweight.
six
It's like,
four, 6'5" or something.
yeah,
Fucking crazy.
that's total insanity. So fighting someone like that must suck, but at the same time, he would start, he started taking accumulation of punishment in some fights, especially as like competition after the Margarito fight started getting like really stiff because like he has the fight with the first fight with Sergio Martinez, and he barely ekes by in that fight, and both those two beat the absolute hell out of each other in
Yeah,
that fight.
that first fight was a great fight. It's a kind of that's something that nobody ever really brings up anymore. It's a great fight.
Oh yeah, really, really great fun. You know what I mean? And one of those fights that a lot of people there was so much contention at it that they had to have a rematch. And when they ended up having that rematch and Williams gets absolutely starched the way he did, it was just kind of like, fuck, you know? And that was a vicious knockout. That was another one that worked for Punch Zone. And
Yeah, dude, there was like barely any green lit up on the punch zone except for just that one green mark was the one that fucking did
yeah, he was laying right
it.
there, knocked the shit out of him.
Oh,
But
bro. One of the most brutal knockouts you can see for sure.
and I also remember too because it wasn't even like the announced team, it wasn't Lampley that night because Lampley would have absolutely lost his mind, and you got to give him credit for that. He was good at like getting excited. It was Bob Papa, um, Max, and I don't know someone else, and you hear them like, and when he lands that shot, and he was just like, you hear Bob Papa, oh, and there's a right hand, and down goes Williams, and that was it. And then you hear like Max in the most monotone voice, well, if it's not the fight of the year, it's certainly the knockout of the year. And I'm like, bro, like there's
Thanks, Max.
yeah, you're right.
Nice
But
enthusiasm.
so was this fight after so this next fight, was this after his was this immediately after like his first fight back? I don't remember. Or did he have
Yes,
that fight? It was?
it was his first fight back. And I mean, and so yeah, like I mean, I think that you pretty much nailed the setup, dude. There was a lot of question. So all right, so that first Quintana fight, it was super awkward. Carlos Quintana, very skilled fighter, but just
Mhm.
not super sturdy, not super consistent, and basically turned in like uh more or less the performance of his career on that evening. And so, he outboxed Paul Williams, kind of, beat him to the punch throughout the fight. And I remember, what, fuck, was that in fucking Temecula, bro? Pretty sure it was, yeah, it was in Pachanga. It was in fucking Temecula. That's right. Because I remember interviewing him immediately after the fight. We were sitting just in the little ballroom area and sitting down at a table and shit. And Paul Williams, and he was super nice. And I remember him just being like sitting there talking to me and being like, yeah, man, I need to go back and retool. Like this kind of fucked me up, and I need to go back to, and he did, and in the rematch, he fucking destroyed Carlos Quintana.
Oh,
But
that was like
like,
my first weekend working for Luke, was the rematch.
He fucking yeah, like I was like, oh, Quintana's probably gonna outbox him again. He didn't look good in that first fight. Bam, just got fucking whacked. But in any case, but yeah, there was a lot of question about that because that first fight he didn't look good, and then he went to war with Sergio Martinez, and then against Kermit Cintrone. Remember the fucking the wild fucking through the ropes shit, and then
Oh yeah,
Cintrone.
man, I
That
totally
was
forgot
like
about that. Holy shit.
Bro, that was like one of the craziest fucking results. And that was like not long into boxing Twitter because
Yeah,
that like I
yeah.
remember I joined in like 2009 or something like that. And so this happened like the following year. It hadn't really blown up yet. And so, but I remember everyone was like, what the fuck was that? And dude went from like diving through the ropes to like he was grabbing his arm, then his neck, he's grabbing his back, and then he's punching the ambulance with fucking that was crazy. But point is, there were so many of these weird things that happened with Williams coming into this fight, and then he got knocked out. Nobody really knew where he was. Like they were just like, "All right, dude, we got two losses here. He got brutally knocked out. How's he coming from back from this brutal knockout?" Arislan Ilata, like you said, he was coming off of a draw with Carlos Molina, also a super awkward fighter, another guy who around that time was in a number of controversial fights et cetera. So there was a lot of questions coming into this shit, a lot of unknowns, but I think a lot of people still thought like Williams was the top level guy and a lot of who knows. And Lada just dinged him around, man. Like, round after round, at least that's what it sure seemed like to me.
Yeah, Williams again provided the volume like he did in every fight, but like unlike other ones where his punches seem to like have more snap in them, like his legs seem to have more like, pulling it's everything about it. Like he seemed off in this fight. He seemed flat. Like a guy that's just been through the ringer and who got absolutely like something was taken out of him from getting knocked the fuck out his last fight. And then like a couple of fights before that going life and death with the same guy and like other stuff. Like he just had a very rough style. And fighting a guy like Lara who just has that type of like laser pinpoint accuracy. And if you leave yourself open, like Williams did throughout that night, I mean? Like his waiting style coming in, doing the volume punching. If you punch through that, you're gonna land. And Lara kept on timing him over and over and over. And it almost felt like it must have been too easy for him at a certain point. And I forgot, didn't like either Lara suffer a cut, Williams suffered a cut. Someone got cut up in that fight. I don't remember who it was.
Yeah.
But
Well, and they had a pretty bad headbutt in like, it was like halfway through or so. And Williams got cut and Lada had that big ass like melon over his eye by the end. So I mean, like it didn't look good either. But I mean, for the most part, and you and I were kind of talking about this earlier too, that Southpaw versus Southpaw matchup is often really funky and the
mhm.
angles are really weird. A lot of Southpaws have trouble with fellow Southpaws because they don't see fellow Southpaws that often. Although this is another reason why the Lara being a Cuban amateur standout is important. Is number one, there's way more way more Southpaws in the Cuban amateur system. Why? I don't really know, but there are, and so they would be, far more comfortable facing other southpaws than in general other fighters would be. I don't know why that. Now I'm kind of curious, but for sure. And Lara was just had the angle of his left hand fucking dialed in. Another one is Tarver Harding. Both of them had difficulty with each other as doing the fucking southpaw shit. And then it was finally Tarver who, in the rematch, figured out the angle on that left hand and then just couldn't fucking miss, kind of like Lada. But they had a lot of trouble with that. It was just that Lada who dialed in fucking way earlier, dude. And I don't now I kind of want to go rewatch it, but nonetheless, that was one for me that I thought was, memorable.
mean, 1,000%, bro. I remember some people's like that was definitely one of the robberies of the year, if not the one of the year at that point too. High profile had to be on HBO, and everybody wrote Williams off after that fight too, more or
The
less.
judges all got fucking suspended. I
They
forgot
did.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the judges got how often does that happen? Never.
It's the first I can hear of it. Yeah, interesting. But it's one of those things that's like Williams, his career, well, unfortunately, never had a chance to really recover from that because I think he came back. He fought Cheetah.
Ishida, yeah, the
Yeah,
dude who knocked out James
James Kirkland.
Kirkland.
he beat him, and then he was scheduled to fight Canelo, and then he had that tragic accident, with a motorcycle that left him in the situation he's in today. But in the early to mid 2000s, Williams was a lot of fun to watch. Just and he fought a who's who of guys too after a while because he was always featured on TV. Even if he was one of those type of guys. I'll say this. Like, I don't think he was as high profile as James Toney, but he was one of those still throwback fighters that you'd see him on HBO against a premium fighter, against a guy like Margarito or so and so. And then you'd see him on one of those off brand shows on like whatever they were airing back in, where he would fight someone like Santos Paku or something like, what I'm talking about, like one of those guys, and like knock them out in like one round just because he's keeping busy.
Yeah, dude. That's something that, and I brought this up in regards to Teddy Atlas, as far as like fighting off TV and stuff like that. And that's something that Teddy has been vocal about when he is training fighters, that he doesn't want them to just wait around for TV dates because that's far too, it's too much time to get in trouble. It's too much
Mhm.
time to get out of shape, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so staying busy is good. And that's not something that you see a lot of top level fighters do these days. At this point, it's basically, God, this says Paul Williams is 6'1". That doesn't seem right. I feel like he was taller than that.
Yeah,
Box rec. I'm going to talk to Gray. I'm taking this up with Gray Johnson, but no, in any case, that's not something that you see a lot of top level fighters do these days. They wait around for the TV date or for the app date or whatever the fuck it is now. God, wait, that sounds really old saying that, but nonetheless, definitely a throwback fighter in that regard and somebody who's missed in the sport for sure.
totally, totally, and a hell of a nice guy, like you said when you met him. Very soft spoken. Um, he was at Mendy's gym or something like that years ago. I had a chance to meet him, after his accident. Same thing, super nice guy. So
Yeah, he kept calling us sir. He
yeah,
like he was like, yes sir, no sir, yes sir. He's definitely had that country accent going.
he would
Nice
always,
dude.
with his trainer too. He would never call his trainer by his first name or anything. He always say Mr. Peterson. I don't even think I remember what his trainer's first name was.
I know he was kind of doing making rounds and making appearances at fights and stuff like that for a bit, although I haven't really seen or heard much about him in a while, so I hope he's doing all right.
I think he's supposed to be at AC. I don't know. I saw an ad for the AC Boxing Hall of Fame. I think he might be making an appearance there. So
Cool. Good.
yeah. All right. So
Canastota wasn't big enough for him.
Minnesota wasn't big enough for a lot.
That's the gag.
So going back to 1979, if you want to talk about one of the most controversial decisions of all time,
Are
and
you
uh,
are you taking my next one? Oh, okay, no.
and it's in the bantamweight division.
Okay, we're good.
Featuring one. I don't know. I would probably say definitely one of the most prolific bantamweight champions of all time, and had one of the greatest reigns during that point. Like during the 70s, you'd have to put him at least in the top five best fighters of that decade. But and then in the end, just had a robbery that was so head scratching that it completely fucked him up and made him go into retirement for a number of years. And you already know what I'm talking about, right? Carlos Zarate against Lupe Pintor.
Yeah, man. I mean, he was so distraught by that, like, basically Hagler levels. Well, not even quite because Hagler was ready to rematch Leonard. He was
Yeah,
basically like, "Fuck it, let's go." It's just Ray was fucking around for too long. But nah, I mean, that basically sent him into a like, "Fuck this, dude. Boxing's done. I'm out." And he stuck with it for a bit. I mean, I don't blame him either, especially considering, like you said, the level that he was at, how highly he could have ranked and should have ranked during that decade and at bantamweight overall. Yeah, what a way to have your reign ended. And nothing
it,
against Zarate either. Great fighter.
oh, you mean Pintor?
Or yeah, sorry, Pintor.
Same thing, because you can't take anything away from Pintor. Like he went on to have a really great reign himself at bantamweight, and like be a guy
Right. He
that
almost like stumbled into it almost.
yeah, he was supposed to be just another nondescript opponent at that point, like a dude who was a good contender. But I mean, someone fighting Zarate, even post Wilfredo Gomez fight, was still supposed to be cannon fodder.
Dude. Well, and it's also a decision that not a lot of people bring up at this point either.
No, they really don't. It's one of those fights that Zarate when he became champion in the early 70s and he knocks the shit out of who did he knock? What was it? Rodolfo Gonzalez, I think.
Yeah, Gato Gonzalez. Yeah,
And becomes champion. He that was during such a deep era too. And the thing about Zarate was that like he was just like precisely taking these guys and just destroying them. He wasn't going in there like his co-champion Alfonso Zamora, who was kind of like a mini Mike Tyson, walking in, waiting in with left hooks and just blasting people out left and right. Like Zarate was a little bit more efficient with his punches. You
yeah,
know
he
what I
was
mean?
a technician.
He was a technician, which made him even more scary too, because he was tall for his division, he was lanky, and he just had like criminally hard power, and he just knew how to put those fucking punches together. You know what I mean? Like it was hard to really get to him because he would slice your ass up. And so like really good fighters were just left bruised and confused and bloodied every time they would fight him. Guys like Alberto Davila, who would end up becoming champion eventually after like toiling in that division for years. You had also too what was it, Paul Ferrari and Alfonso Zamora in their big fight when they finally ended up getting a chance together. It was supposed to be a unification fight, but that ends up just being a non-title. Um, who Another guy, I think because I liked his name. I don't think he was anything really special about him. Panga Man, dude from South Africa.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
Not off the top of my head, anyway.
Okay, yeah, you probably have to look for Box Rec. But I mean, all those dudes from South Africa really had funny nicknames back then. So, um, but I mean, Zarate was just like absolutely blew out the bantamweight division. So when you look at the 70s and you think of like just dominant champions, you had guys like Roberto Duran at lightweight. You had Carlos Monzon, who basically dominated up until his retirement in 77. You had Muhammad Ali, who was more or less champion for the majority of the 70s, besides a hiccup here and there. And Bob Foster up until the mid 70s, and then Victor Galendez kind of took over until the end of the 70s, like stuff like that. You always had like these resident champions who were just kind of dominant. Miguel Canto more or less became like the dominant guy at flyweight, so on and so forth. This was like that era. At bantamweight, that was Zarate. That dude was just, it looked like he was unbeatable. So by the time when he fought Wilfredo Gomez, even though Gomez was an undefeated champion himself with a ridiculous KO ratio, and I mean, when you look at that type of fight, you're just like mind blown at that type of thing. Like, that would be a huge fight today. I mean, and then they go in there, and there was just, there was a bunch of issues that happened with Zarate in that fight, right? I think he came in overweight. He claimed that he had the flu beforehand. He didn't really recover from it. Yada, yada, yada. Regardless of the thing, though, is that he was fighting a peak Wilfredo Gomez, and Gomez just absolutely throttled him.
Right,
So
and in his own division too, and
he,
and in his own country, which probably didn't really have that much of an effect, but nonetheless, he's fighting Wilfredo Gomez. And I just correct myself from earlier. I got wires crossed about the Rodolfo. It was Rodolfo Martinez,
Rudolph
not
Martinez.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
not Gato Gonzalez, but
And
nonetheless,
Wallace was a lightweight, I think.
yeah, yeah. So I got anyway, like smoke a lot of weed, wires crossed. Anyway, but yes, that was part of, a big part of his reign. And he also went through, dude, how many fighters while making a dominant reign in a division are gonna go up these days and say, fuck it, I'm gonna go up and challenge the guy division up, and hang
And
on to my belt and whatever. Like that doesn't really happen that often these days.
it's very rare, very, very rare. So I mean, for him to do that, considering all, was like huge. And I mean, look, he got beat down by Gomez, and I know that, like you said, over the years, he said he had the flu, he had other issues, and yeah, whatever. But like, there's no shame in getting throttled by a guy like Gomez. You know what I mean? Just like junior featherweight wasn't meant to be. So he goes back down to bantamweight, makes a couple of more defenses, gets back into the swing of things. But you can just, after getting beat down like that, the aura that he originally had as being like the king of the little guys is not there anymore. Now Gomez has that. And Gomez just would go on to be that force to be reckoned with. But so by the time he fights Zarate in 79, I think at this point Zarate was being handled by Don King, which would probably make sense. King was kind of taking over everybody around that point. And this fight was at Caesar's Palace and all that. But again, it was supposed to be just another routine defense for him. And Pintor is one of those dudes, like tough guy that he was nondescript at this point. I mean, again, he had toiled through the bantering ranks and had lost a few and won a bunch and stuff like that. But again, that had just been through the meat grinder. And by the time he gets this fight at Zarate, he's not distinguished enough to really cause much ruffle to think and he's gonna do anything with him. You know, for most of the fight, he kind of really doesn't. Like he's competitive in spots. You know, he's trying his best, and you know, to his credit, he doesn't get knocked out, but he's losing. Like comprehensively, he's losing. Plus, he gets dropped, I think, in like round 4, round 5, or something like that. Like, you know, and by the end of 15 rounds, it's one of those fights that, like, you know, he's you know how fighters are just happy that they lasted a distance, even though they know they didn't win. So they're just kind of like, you know, happy and smiling, so forth about that. That's how Pinto kind of looks. He even has the reaction of like, you know, okay, I knew I didn't win this fight. I got my ass kicked, but hey, I'm still here. Fuck it. And then the decision happens. And then when you hear the decision and you read all that and you just kind of like, wait, what? 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 And then when you read that and then you look at the like the reactions of everybody when it's announced that Pinto is a split decision winner, Zarate just looks absolutely befuddled and just crestfallen. Referee kind of looks confused. And Pintor, the winner, even looks confused himself, right? Pintor's looking around like,
Yeah,
wait,
he
what?
gets this look on his face
Yeah.
like what? Really? Me?
And then
Me?
like everyone's picking him up and he's still kind of looking around like, wait, the fuck? You sure you guys got the scoring right?
Well, and dude, I mean, the I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but it was, and you could see Zarate, like you said earlier, technician, more of like a longer fighter, good jab. That's how he got a lot of his knockouts, was walking fighters into his shots and shit like that. Jab two, you know, 1-2, 1-2 type of shit. That's how he got a lot of his knockouts, and that's basically, in to his credit, Lupe Pintor, very tough fighter, very tough guy, like you said, went on to have a very good reign himself, but was just, you know, was clearly controlled in this fight, was walked into a lot of punches, but was aggressive. You know, he brought the fight to Zarate in most rounds, and I think that, I guess, for whatever reason, that probably was what the judges credited, I guess, but it was the wrong decision.
And then if how did he do this?
And looking at the official, or the unofficial
Yeah, I'm trying to
scorecards,
look. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, looking at the unofficial scorecards on the BoxRec like Wikipedia page too. Um, let's see, AP score. Damn, the AP had it kind of wide. I don't know if it was that wide. The AP had Zarate by 11 points, which is fuck, like, you know, 12-3 or something like, or no, 13-2. Boxing Illustrated had it 144, 142 Sarate. Yeah, it's a little close. International Boxing 942 Sarate. That's probably closer to what should be, just a very, you know, a clean win where Pintor got a few rounds. Ring Magazine 145, 138. Boxing Digest 147, 141. Yeah, you know, that sounds about right to me. 147, 141 or so. But point is, a clean, clear, decisive win by Sarate. Who
Okay,
knows, man?
this is what I was trying to figure out. So Bob Martin, the one judge that scored for Zarate, scored at 133 to 145, which you know, it's when you hear that type of score, you try to figure out how the hell did you even get to something like that, right? And according to Carlos Azevedo's chapter in his book Blood in his book that he wrote about, a chapter about Pentor and Gomez. I think what happened was that Bob Martin was judging on the old system of like judging rounds by like the 5 point must system instead of 10, and then like realized what he did after the fight, and then just kind of doubled up on everything afterwards and came up with a scorecard that way. If that makes sense.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, neither does the
I
division.
think I still like described it wrong, but like, yeah, he just made a
No,
math.
I know what you're saying, but it still doesn't, like,
It's
it
yeah,
doesn't make sense to do that.
it made a mathematical catastrophe. And when you look at that scorecard compared to the other two, it makes it even more eye popping. Like, what the hell just went on there? Like
Yeah, it
something.
doesn't make sense to do that.
Sure.
That's a dumb decision.
So, like you said, Zarate retires and just goes into hibernation for a number of years. He would resurface in the mid 80s, and unfortunately, it just wasn't the same. You know what I mean? He came back for a number of fights. He was kind of, I would say, you know, like he kind of looked like Joe Louis in the sense that remember when Louis came back and he had the bald spot over there and he just looked old. Zarate, same thing, man. Like, you know, his receding hairline, he was almost going bald over there and just generally looked like the dude that just was caught up in a different era and he had, you know, from a bygone. But he scored a number of wins. Then, by the time it was time to really step up and go for a world title again, didn't end up working out. He lost to Jeff Fennick, got beat around in that fight, and then Daniel Zaragoza emphatically finished him with a knockout. But for Pintor,
Yeah, Zaragoza did to him what Eric Morales did to Zaragoza a couple years
as
later, sent
always
him out
comes
to pasture.
always comes full circle, doesn't it? Um, so Pintor, though, to his credit, after that fight, like you said, after winning a fight so in such like a sham controversial way and everyone questioning and getting angry and all this other, dark clouds surrounding it and all this bullshit, he ends up becoming one of the more respectable champions of the era as well. You know what I mean? He scores a number of decisive wins that really, sad one against Johnny Owen, but he beats a number of other top contenders during that time. And by the time he ends up fighting Wilfredo Gomez in '82 on the undercard of Hearns Benitez, that ends up being one of the best title fights of all time. I mean, like, it's one of my favorite of all time. You know what I mean? Like him and Gomez in a fight that a lot of people thought Gomez was just kind of walk through him. Ends up just being like one of those grueling battle of attritions where Gomez dominates early, Pinter comes rallying back. Gomez's eyes, turn into like raccoons and stuff like that because he's so much swelling and darkness around there. And then he rallies back to stop Pinter. Like Pinto was one of those dudes that just became a really popular staple and respected guy in the '80s. But you know what? He deserved every bit of it because he grinded it and built himself for that.
Yeah, it was almost like he got the really lucky win earlier, but then wound up he faked it till he made it. He wound up making it later. He made up for the decision that he didn't really earn and the title that he didn't really earn. But like you said earlier, it was such a surprise and such a disgust to to Zarate that he just walked away.
Sure. So if he didn't retire and say he decided to stick with it, he probably would have moved up again. Because I know he was struggling to make bantamweight at that point, so he probably would have moved up again. I don't know who Gomez at that point was like planning on fighting Salvador Sanchez, but he was still around in '80 and '81, so maybe they would have had a rematch. If not from there, he would have been involved in other fights, but I think eventually a dude like Sanchez or someone else probably would have beat him and stopped him and kind of put him out.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe yeah.
he was between a rock and a hard place, having a tough time making 118, but had already shown that he got beaten down by the top guy at 122. That doesn't mean you can't campaign at 122. That doesn't mean that, I guess, having that's the kind of mindset that a person like me who's never been at the top, I don't understand, where you're kind of like, well, if I can't be the best, then fuck that. I don't. Why don't you try? That's what stupid ass little old mediocre me. Why don't you try? But I get it. I mean, he was kind of between a rock and a hard place where he didn't really know what to do. But yeah, I don't know. Definitely one of the greatest bantamweights of all time, though.
Totally.
So I thought for a second, not looking at the year when you said 76, I was like, oh shit, he's taking my shit. But this is a fight that we have talked about on a different show under kind of a different circumstance, but we can revisit that a little bit here. But speaking about just the decision, it's one of the worst decisions of all time, like of all time, as far as the fights that we have video of. One of the dudes who pretty consistently watches or listens to the show, that vintage boxing dude, has uploaded a super high quality version of the fight a while back, not long after we talked about it on the show, the Tyrone Everett show, and that's the Alfred Escalera fight.
Mhm.
Man, because I know that for a while, like we just mentioned a minute ago, some of these fights have been kind of going on and off YouTube. Some of them get taken down, etc. And whatever. To me, that's the kind of thing where I just don't get it, because I'm not entirely sure what the person who holds the rights to these fights is doing with these fights. They're not making money off of it. They're not doing shit. And so it makes no sense to me to go after people who are uploading them so people can enjoy them. But
It's
anyway,
mine. No.
I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. It's not my shit. Point is that for a long time, it wasn't easy to find a copy of Alfredo Escalera, Tyrone Everett. It just was one of those fights that was kind of, yeah, tough to find. It's up now. At least it was last I looked. And you can plainly see that Tyrone Everett clearly beats Alfredo Escalera. It's not a good decision. So there's a lot of stuff that comes attached with it too, mostly in the postscript of the fight, more so than leading up to the fight. Because I'm not going to lie, I'm like an expert of all the goings on about the fight, but the fight itself, not good.
No, I mean, Everett whooped him. That was just one of those comprehensive, absolute ass whoopings from beginning to end. Escalera was a great fighter. Don't get me wrong, all right? But like, we've discussed him before on the show before. Became champion. And again, during the 70s, one of those tough eras where yeah, like the competition is as stiff as it gets. And Escalera wasn't one of those guys who did anything spectacularly, but like he just knew how to do everything well enough to get ahead. And he was ridiculously tough. All right, like just watch the Arguello fights and see the type of like punishment he takes and the goriness of his face. It still comes through landing combinations on Arguello to prove his toughness. Regardless, it's just all that being said, he still came up short against a guy like Everett that night. You know what I mean? Everything that Escalera wanted to do, Everett was just a step ahead and just better at him at it. You know what I mean? He was faster than him. He was quicker than him. He was better at just boxing everything he did. He out corralled him. He outboxed him. He just out whooped him. And at the end of 15 rounds, you think, there's no way in hell that Everett's going to lose this fight, especially considering the fight is in Philadelphia, Everett's hometown at the fucking Spectrum. Like, we're just witnessing a hometown coronation here. And instead, Escalera gets the decision. Everyone is just kind of like, except for the people, like you said, you just hinted at this, except for the people involved in the fight, who will probably just kind of look at each other ringside and just kind of going, well, get the fuck out of here now.
Yeah, that well, and to have it, I guess what's crazy to me was the kind of aura that the fight had without even ever having seen it for so long. The aura that the fight had on like, bulletin boards and message boards and stuff like that, for so long, and people knew how bad a decision it was without even having seen it. The word of mouth was that strong on it. That says a lot. And I mean, just to kind of give a little bit of background, like I said, when people are welcome to go back and watch the Tyrone Everett or listen to the Tyrone Everett episode that we did for a little bit more background, a little more detail on him, especially as a fighter. But he was a highly skilled fighter, a really talented fighter, a dude who Philadelphia, historic boxing town, and on top of that, we're talking about during a time when Philadelphia was really kicking off as a boxing town too, in the 1970s and into the 1980s. I mean, really, he was in the midst of that and expected to go on and just excel. And I mean, in a way, he kind of did, but should have gone a lot farther and was, it seemed destined to go a lot farther than that. It was that this loss, like, really, really derailed him, dude. He was in his early 20s, had tons of promise. And man, I can't imagine like a culmination of that. Like it's somebody who managed to get past that. Roy Jones, building up to something for your entire fucking life and then like losing, getting totally fucking yanked at the Olympics. I'd quit. I probably would have quit. I would have been like, fuck this, dude. Are you kidding me? I'm not getting involved in this. But that says a lot about these guys as people too, that they're able to get past that. Point being that I understand how badly something like that could derail a young fighter.
1,000%, man. I mean, like uh, the mental toll that can take on you. You know what I mean? For that type of thing is like unbearable. I can't imagine. Because like if it's a close enough fight and then you feel like you won it, but I mean like some people feel it can go either way, then that's one thing. You know what I mean? Like you can just take that and be like use that as fuel and motivation to be like next time I'm really gonna whoop his ass. But when you comprehensively whoop someone from beginning to end, where there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever, I don't give a damn if the guy's your blood brother, you cannot say that he won this fight, and then you get that taken away from you, what else are you going to think except that there's corruption? Like, there's no other explanation for it. There's no other way to say to you, okay, this is just incompetence because he threw more than me, kind of like how I feel about the Conceição fight, or like, some type of other thing. Like, no, there was just some blatant bullshit going on in this fight. And if you watch it, you would see that from beginning to end. It's like you can't defend any type of way of Escalera winning that fight. There's none. There's none whatsoever.
Yeah. Philadelphia Daily News, Tom Cushman wrote, Tyrone Everett won the junior lightweight championship of the world last night. Won it with a whirling, artistic, courageous performance that brushed against the edges of brilliance. Tyrone was standing tall, proud, bleeding in his corner after the 15 rounds, waiting for the championship belt to be draped around his waist when they snatched it from him. Picked him so clean, it's a wonder they didn't take his shoes and trunks along with everything else. I mean, look, like I said, there's a lot of recency bias. And so often when we see some bad shit happening or some shit we don't agree with it, we blow it up, we exaggerate it, like that's the worst fucking robbery I've ever seen in my life when it was like a 7-5 fight. You know what I'm saying? Like shit was like 6-5-1 and we're like, "What the fuck?" People are talking about like Tyson Fury got fucking robbed and shit like that and it's like it was a reasonably close fight that Alexander Usyk won by, fucking battering him in a few rounds or something like that. And people are like, it's the robbery of the century. Point is, we exaggerate. Writers exaggerate, fans exaggerate. But this is no exaggeration.
Nope, not at all whatsoever. It was
They
just really,
hemped that fool.
and it's sad too. I mean, obviously, Everett came to a tragic ending before his career really had a chance to like pick up steam again after this fight. But it's tough, it's sad because you want to think about what could have happened. Like this guy had tons of promise. He was a great young fighter, and he put on a brilliant performance that night. And so, like, you got to think, all right, would he get a rematch with Escalara? Who knows? I don't know what the behind the scenes guys would have entailed, but there's a possibility if they felt there could be money involved that they could have Everett win it now in a rematch. Then sure, that could have been a thing. Our Alexis Arguello, like I mentioned before, was coming on the scene and about to move up to challenge Escalara soon after this. Everett, if Everett was champion, that would have been him there. That Arguello would have been challenging. Everett had the type of style that would have gave Arguello fits. You know what I mean? So like that would have been another fascinating matchup. Um, he a lot of those other guys too that were starting to come on the scene and the junior lightweight scene. Like you had Bazooka Limon, Bobby Chacon was starting to come around again.
Yep.
Um,
A lot of those dudes that would move up to lightweight a few years later
Yeah,
and wreck and
Cornelius,
wreak
Boza
havoc.
Edwards,
We're at 130.
Rolando
Yeah.
Cabarate. Yeah. Eventually Everett could have moved up to 135. Again, Arguello would have been over there. You had guys like Howard Davis and, others coming on the scene soon after. Like, dang.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess just to kind of briefly delve into it, just because, like I said, we did a whole episode on this where we went into a little bit more detail. Although, I mean, there was recently a book written by Sean Nam. I'm not going to lie, I haven't read it, but I would imagine it goes into way more detail than what we went into. But nonetheless, we did go into a little bit of detail. Long story short, he was uh, with a girlfriend at the time who, according to reports, and again, I'm going to stress, according to reports, this is not me making it up. Don't get mad in the comments because this is what happened last time when we did the show. People are like, how can you talk about blah, blah, blah? Yo, I'm just talking about what happened in reports, bro. Don't get mad at me. Shoot the messenger. According to the reports, his girlfriend, I believe her name was Carolyn McKendrick, walked in on Tyrone Everett with a trans person doing sexual things. That's all really the reports say. And then and then he died not long after that of a gunshot to the head.
Yep.
Fill in whatever blanks you want, I guess. Point is, that's what wound up happening. He was only 24 years old and he had two fights after the Escaleta fight. So he was kind of on the comeback, I guess. I mean, the guys that he fought weren't really fighters that were going to propel him up the rankings, but hey, dude, you got to rebuild.
You're still rebuilding, exactly. And all those fights that could have been on the horizon. Like he was a young fighter and Escalara,
Everybody knew it was a robbery. It wasn't like, yeah, he didn't lose much luster or anything.
totally, absolutely not. And like I said, by the end of the 70s, going into the 80s, chances are he would have been moved up to around like lightweight division, moving into potentially the 140 or something. I mean, who knows where he would have maxed out at, right? But like he would have been around close to 135 at that point. And like I said, you had dudes like Hilmer Kenty, and then you had Ray Mancini, who was going to be around the scene pretty soon, and Argoyo was going to be moving up. Who knows if they would have fought at that point? But if they hadn't, then they could have been there at lightweight. Like, it was a lot for him. And chances are he would have been champion at some point too.
Yeah. I mean, he had the talent. He had the right style where he was kind of like a boxer puncher, reasonably entertaining, good Philadelphia rep. Yeah, man. It's unfortunate. But that Escalera robbery is really what derailed a lot.
Sure. All right. So another one that, well, since you brought him up yesterday, was it yesterday you brought him up? I think it was. We were talking about Joe Louis.
We probably bring him up like every day.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I think we were talking about his family, though, his kids and stuff like that. You're talking about the kids
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know. But anyways, yeah, it made me think, and I was like, holy shit, you got to talk about Joe Louis and Jersey Joe Walcott in their first fight
Yeah,
because
man.
that's
It's
like you
not
got to think about it. Near the end of Lewis's reign, man, you got that dark shadow over it. And it's definitely the first Walcott fight because everyone that and their mama will tell you Lewis did not deserve to win that.
it's not often, and I mean, again, this kind of says a lot about Joe Lewis's character as like a human being and as a person and his integrity and shit. Because look, man, I mean, Hobson Conceição, it's not like he gloated. He didn't go in there and be like, hey, 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 hey. He didn't do any of that shit. But he also didn't be like, hey, man, this guy
Yeah.
deserves a rematch. And that's exactly what Joe Louis did. He literally was like, man, I didn't win this fight. I don't feel like the champion. This guy's the champion. I'm basically just this. Somehow they gave me the belts and we're going to do a rematch. You never hear fighters say that almost ever. And understandably, that's the thing is that like that's why you remember it because it's an outlier because I've talked about this before. Don't get mad when top level fighters say I'm the best in the world or I'm the best that's ever done it. That's the kind of attitude winners and world class people have.
I'm pretty sure he even apologized to Walcott afterwards. I think he went up to him and was like, sorry, Joe.
Yeah, I mean straight up fuck. Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
So it's remarkable that he would have that kind of integrity and be that kind of person. But the point is, yeah, dude, he got or Walcott that is got robbed.
And you got to think of it. Lewis had been champion since 1937. I mean, the guy had just completely wiped out the entire division, and people were wondering if he was going to reign forever. But you have to think, you got to understand after he got out of military service, during World War II, and how many years was he out for? Besides doing like exhibitions and stuff like that, he was out for like
Gosh,
4 years or so, right?
yeah, like a couple years because it
Years.
was between the first con fight and the second. I mean, there were fights between them, but only like two, I think. And it was like, yeah, it was like 30. And well, yeah. Anyway, it was a couple of years. It was a
And he
significant
was just,
amount of time. He fought
yeah,
like 200 times in the army or something.
sure. So by the time he gets out, clearly he's not the same Joel Lewis of like the past. You know what I mean? Like just something is really off. And when he fights Khan in the rematch, it's shown for both of them, especially Khan, because Khan was just completely washed. But yeah, there was definitely something a little bit off with him. Like, he was still winning these fights and like, defending his title and usually violently knocking everybody out. But like stuff was kind of missing. Like when he fought Tammy Murillo, for instance, who in the past Lewis would just destroy him, which he did in this one too. I don't think it went past one round, but Murillo did hurt him initially before he got finished. You know what I mean? And show signs of like slippage. Other fights too, he just wasn't the same dude. So by the time he fights a guy like Walcott, who's actually older than Lewis, but didn't have to go away in the war and is more active and toiling and fighting everybody they need to be, including the dangerous contenders that Lewis wasn't fighting, like El Murray and others, was waiting in the wings. And Walcott was one of those guys that not only was he a deserving contender, he had one of the most awful styles in history to fight. The most trickiest son of a bitch you would ever type of fight. And for a guy like Lewis, who never really had particularly fast feet, always needed to be set to punch, and now is a little past his prime, that's like an absolute nightmare of a style to fight.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. And I mean, he was a nightmare regardless. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he was a pain in the ass for most fighters no matter what, but for a Joe Louis who was struggling to catch up and who already didn't have fast feet in the first place. And, anybody with tricky footwork he often struggled with. It was just that he knew how to cut the ring off and he knew how to chase guys down or, kind of wear them down. And he was such a precise puncher that if he caught you, it was your ass. But the thing was that, yeah, like you said, the timing was poor, the style was bad. He eats a bad knockdown, or was it two bad knockdown? Two
Too bad.
knockdowns,
Yeah,
I
he
think.
got
Yeah, I was
dropped.
gonna say, wait a second, it's two knockdowns because he got knocked down early, and then he got knocked down like several rounds later. Um, Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a pretty clear decision for Jersey Joe Walcott, and especially given what was on the line, it's a pretty high level robbery.
Totally. I mean, well, Lewis was like trying to like it was just a struggle for him. Walcott was so shifty in the way he like could walk away and come in and catch you with a hook. And then if you're trading with him too, he had a way of shifting his weight and then like catching you with a sneak hook or a right hand. And just it's an awful guy to fight, just absolutely awful style. And I mean, like, watching him and then you put some jazz music behind it, it just works because Walcott had that type of just herky jerky beautiful. I mean, I love watching them. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's beautiful style to watch. It just must have sucked to fight. And so, for a guy like Lewis, like you said, Lewis couldn't really time him that first fight. And every time he thought he caught a beat on him, Walcott would catch him with a sneaky shot. And if he didn't drop him, would wobble his ass too. And and Lewis just struggled. And for a guy that was like, he didn't get his timing since he got out of the army and just wasn't the same dude as he used to be, it just made him look bad. You know what I mean? And Walcott generally outboxed him for that entire fight. It was only what, 10 rounds that one?
Uh, no, there was
That
15.
was 15. It was 15, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the fight, everyone assumes they're like, okay, well, Lewis lost, but when he gets it, yeah, it just looked really really bad. You know what I mean? But like you said, to Lewis's credit, he gives him the rematch, and in the rematch, again, Lewis is not looking good either. He gets dropped early on, and he's still getting outboxed. And Walcott's doing the same herky jerky shit and making him look awful until Lewis finally catches him in the corner around like around 11 or so it is, and it's like it's the funniest thing. You could just see like the way Lewis like hurts him, and when you see Walcott shake, and then like all of that frustration Lewis has had between the 15 rounds of their first fight, all the rounds he takes it out on him finally, like I got you, you little motherfucker. Like
Yeah, there was Joe Lewis, the precise puncher, who
yeah,
was like a kind of just a cold, calculated, and then there was the Joe Lewis who was like against like Tony Galento, where he was just like, "All right, motherfucker," like just fucking swinging. Like he didn't do that often, but there were a couple times where he was like, "I'm taking you the fuck out," and he did that against Walcott too.
he wasn't taking no chances. He didn't, and for to Walcott's credit, he tried swinging back a few times, and he almost caught Lewis with a couple of sneak hooks in between when Lewis started flurrying. Right, you see Walcott trying to like ride him out. He's riding him out. He made Lewis miss a couple of ones, and then he land a hook, and then he tried it again. But that's when Lewis lands a right hand, and pow, and then Walcott's just short circuited from there, and that's
Yeah,
when
it
Lewis
just
really,
twists fucking down.
yeah, and Lewis just started bow, 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 bow until Walcott just drops in the heat. I'm sure that must have been so like the satisfaction, like the euphoria must have felt out of his body after he did that. Like, finally, I got this dude. It's like beating a video game, for instance, right? You know how you always go to this certain level, and every single time the dude whoops your ass, or you can't get past it, and then finally you figure out a way to get him, and then you just go over the top and beat him, and then you like, you're fucking so
And you're like,
excited.
"That's
Yeah,
right. I spent
yeah,
412 hours of my fucking life."
exactly. That's like how Lewis felt, man. Like you finally was just like, finally, I got rid of this motherfucker. Like I got him.
Yeah, dude. Well, and again, fucking Jersey Joe Walcott, super pain in the ass to fucking fight. And this was his first well, the first fight was his first
First title
world
fight.
title shot. And he was already like in his gosh, I'd have to I haven't done the math, but I'd have to imagine he was in his mid 30s by this point, or
He
maybe
was, yeah.
like 33 or something like that. So
Because he was
yeah.
like 37 when he became champion. So I'm gonna say he was around like 30. Yeah, he had to have been around 33,
Yeah.
34.
So he was well, in any case, he was obviously several years into his career, and that was his first of five fucking title shots.
Five. And when people talk about connections back then, oh, there was no like, mafia or anything going on. Listen, bro, you don't get five shots at the heavyweight title unless you're connected and know people, okay?
And on top of that, dude, when you go kind of like, retroactively work backwards with everything that happened and then look at the decision and Joe Lewis getting the decision, he retires after the Jersey Joe Walcott rematch, understandably, or I mean, at least temporarily retires, understandably, because, these fights are getting harder and harder. There's actually a very good crop of younger fighters coming up. Ezra Charles is making his name coming up from light heavyweight, etc. So it makes sense to get out now. And then on top of that, like we were talking about, Joe Louis literally, dude, and this is something that not a lot of people talk about because I love Joe Louis. It has nothing to do with what I think of him as a person overall. He literally sold his heavyweight championship to the mob that was controlling fights at Madison Square Garden at the time, and the people who were, in the midst of taking over Mike Jacobs' empire after he had a stroke, and and then wound up eventually dying. And so he sold his heavyweight championship to these people and then pledged basically to help them promote the heavyweight championship after that, and did. And so then when you look at that and think like, well, do you think that the people who were overseeing this fight would have allowed Joe Louis to lose that championship if there were any chance they could make sure that he didn't, so that they could move forward and make sure that he retires as scheduled and sells them the championship? No fucking way. No fucking way. Especially given what we know happened in the years immediately after that, and then where they wound up getting hemped in the late 50s by the feds. No way, man.
I absolutely summed it up, man. You know, that whole division back then just got really muddled and weird after he retired. And like you said, as a Charles ends up becoming champion, but like it still wasn't universal recognition. You know what I mean? Like he beats Jersey Joe Walcott, and then he's only recognized by like the NBA as champ. And then Lewis decides to come back, obviously, because financially he's already like ruined. And Charles beats him, then he gets universal recognition. Walcott coming, it was just a whole scene. But like, and not to say that the title got splintered a bunch of times and all that. There was just a lot of ugliness behind the scenes of how it was controlled and all that. Like,
Exactly.
Clark
Yeah.
definitely was connected with his managers. Like his manager definitely had mob ties. I think his manager was like Felix. I can't pronounce his last name, Barra or something. Um, and yeah, that's just the way it was. You know, what I mean, like I mentioned to you yesterday, there's that footage of Marciano um at the doing the press conference saying that he's going to fight Archie Moore before his last fight, and you see Jim Norris right at his side, just looking all greasy and slimy as he is. And Jim Norris was the head of the IBC, and which ran boxing back then. And Jim Norris's big thing was that he took all the gangsters and all the mobsters around and used them as like his little soldiers and lieutenants to help run boxing, and he was just the head of it.
Yeah,
And like,
and that was literally the whole game, and that was kind of like
yep,
that was 70, 80 years ago, and
here we are.
here they are doing it again.
Oh, you love this sport.
Right underneath anybody's noses. They literally ran the scam where they would have a centralized fucking hub, which
Yeah.
was Madison Square Garden, and then pay all of these little satellite managers throughout the country to control the fighters that they wanted to control so that they would eventually come across world championships, buy that fighter's career or management or contract or whatever. And then there they go. They're the mob controls a championship, and then they can control the betting on these fights. They can control a massive fucking amount of money. It's almost as if boxing's a big fucking money laundering scam. Hmm.
I'll tell you what, though, man, if I'm a fighter back in the day and a dude who's called Mr. Gray with a silver tooth, who I'm known has gone around and popped many of guys, or just reputation wise over there, comes knocking at my gym that says he needs to talk with me. I don't know if I'm retiring, just trying to run to a different
I'm becoming
country.
a plumber.
Yeah, right. So,
Yeah, it's really wild shit for sure, and that's definitely one of the more memorable robberies given what was on the line. And here's another one where I mean I know that it doesn't get recognized by everybody because of who it is and because of all the shit with the alphabet organizations that happened in the wake, and the way that I know that the lineal title is considered kind of like hipstery these days. People want to fucking to me, that's weird. I mean, why wouldn't you recognize the fighter who beats the fighter? I know anyway. Point is,
I know where you're going with this.
I know. So George Foreman defeats
Oh,
Michael Moore, becomes heavyweight champion, which everyone fucking recognizes, right? Then he doesn't lose in the ring. gets stripped by all the fucking organizations, and they're all fucking around and stuff like that. And on top of that, to be fair, he's kind of fucking around. He doesn't really seem to know what he wants to do as champion. And then a couple of the fights that he was going to be making too either fell through, or money, blah blah blah. So long story short, he finally winds up getting to Shannon Briggs, and Shannon Briggs wins a fucking weird. Why would they? I don't know why. There's no reason for this that I can really understand, but mostly just that Shannon Briggs, I guess, survived. And people weren't expecting him to, so they gave him the decision in the lineal heavyweight title. I don't know, but that's definitely, like I said before, with Joe Louis and Jersey Joe Walcott being that visible, being with that much on the line, and technically, again, George Foreman lineal heavyweight championship. Pretty wild to fucking rob him like that, even though, again, with it felt karmic. It felt like shit was balancing out with the decisions that Foreman had gotten to, but weird.
So that was what, 1997?
Yeah.
It's crazy to think Foreman was still active in 97. Like, I mean, he wasn't very active, but like his fight before that, I think, was against Lou Savarese. And I mean, great. Listen, Savarese was never going to be no world beater, but he was undefeated at the time. And Foreman, to his credit, looked impressive in beating him over for 12 rounds. Like he, put in a good performance in that one. And I think a fight that people thought Savarese probably would have beat him. But anyways, so when he fights Briggs, again, like you said, Foreman, even though he's so old at this point too, like he's clearly not the guy he was even when he fought like Michael Moore, or definitely not the dude who was back in 1990. But he still has his fundamentals down. You know what I mean? He's such a relaxed fighter that like he can still control a guy like as inept as Briggs was, basically, just with his jab and right hands. And that's what he did. Like he's just so accurate with it. Just bow, bow, because it's quicker than it looks, but it's not. And he I don't know. I remember that. I remember watching that live with my dad, and he was absolutely flabbergasted at that decision too. Like he could not believe it. He was like, "How did Briggs win that? Briggs didn't win nothing." Just lost it. Absolutely lost it. And still, still to this day, man, it's one of those fights that you wonder how you can come to that conclusion. Like Briggs did come on later on. I do remember that. Like he marked up Foreman a little bit and probably, stole a couple of the last rounds. But you can't justify him getting anything closer than like 117, 111, maybe.
Well, and it made no sense too,
Yeah.
because it was like, so Shannon Briggs, for I know everybody remembers him now because of social media and the Let's Go Champ shit, which great. He fucking promoted himself fantastic, especially considering he did like almost nothing in his comeback. But follow Vladimir Klitschko, great for him. He probably made some money. But is going into the George Foreman fight, I mean, he was a high level amateur in the New York scene. He grew up not I don't know if it was in Brownsville, but I know it wasn't far from Brownsville in any case. And I know that he was a high level amateur. A lot of people expected a lot from him. He got a lot of like endorsements and shit like that early on in his career. But I think that he had a lot of issues with training, a lot of issues with consistency. I know that according to him, and I mean, there probably is some truth to this, dude, because I had asthma too when I fought, and that shit fucking sucked. Like I'd be like puking and shit some days when I was training, and it shit fucking sucked, bro. But anyway, he chose to go on as a fighter, and I know that he said that like his asthma affected him, and there were a number of fights where he wanted to quit and stuff like that. But basically, his most notable fight to this point as a pro was a loss to Daryl Wilson, which there's nothing wrong with losing to Daryl Wilson. It's just that that was his most profile fight at all. And so going into this fight, people were kind of like, what's this for? What's going on here? He's just kind of a good talker. What is this? So there wasn't a whole lot expected. And again, like I said earlier, it's basically like he survived.
Basically, so like you said, to touch on like the popularity of Briggs in the 90s, he was big in the New York area, really, really big. And like he was featured in things like I think he was featured in a couple of music videos. He was
Yeah, he's a
definitely
hot prospect and everything.
he was featured on the remember the show New York Undercover?
Yeah.
He played a small role in that in one episode. And yeah, he was just around, I mean? And I think I mentioned on previous shows when they did that night of the young heavyweights, he was the only one out of the three guys, Tua, Galata, and him that were featured that night to get a pre-fight feature, like a whole video package beforehand. So yeah, there was a lot of talk behind Briggs, but after he got knocked out, emphatically, in fact, against Darrell Wilson, who was completely unknown, that definitely put a dent in his curve. But it wouldn't be surprising, thinking about it back then and knowing Foreman's track record, especially in the late 90s, how he picked his opponents, it wasn't surprising that he would pick a guy like Briggs to fight and that HBO would approve it because Foreman was still very picky and choosy. After he beat Michael Moore, he fights Axel Schultz, almost loses that fight, which he should have lost. That was another blatant robbery. Um, then I want to say he went to Japan and fought Crawford Grimsley in that weird card.
Yeah, that was strange.
Very, I think that was the one
And
that
nobody
tough.
even remembers that fight. Like it just didn't even happen,
Yeah, or I don't know, it was bad. And then I don't know. I don't think he was active again after that until he fought Savarese, right?
Yeah, yeah, he always was only fighting once a year.
Yeah, so like, and then he fights Savarese and then the Briggs fight. And I don't know if he would have kept on going after he beat Briggs because where else was he going to go after that? Like, I can't see him fighting Lennox Lewis. That would have been an awful proposition for Foreman at that point.
And he
Um,
seemed like he knew it too. That's the thing, is
yeah,
he seemed like he was well aware. Like he was like, I'm keeping away from these other big young heavyweights because they'd fuck me up. So I'm just gonna
sure.
kind of
I
do my
mean,
thing.
I don't think Michael Grant had like made his presence on the scene yet at that point, but I mean, he was going to be lurking pretty soon. And then you had Tua that was clearly there at that point, and like others. So
Jesus, dude. Can you imagine George Foreman Tua?
1990 George Foreman and Tua would have been absolutely awesome. 1997 George Foreman against Tua,
Yeah,
and
no.
yeah,
Oof. Yeah, because George would have been there too, like to hit.
like a lot of them too. The dude was just massive and just all body wise there, like you said, there to be hit. No thanks. But
Yikes.
so yeah, that was a really good one, man. I don't know, that was just bad. It was just the weird era of that division. But I mean, I got Briggs into that fight with Lennox Lewis, which he never would have got had he not beat Foreman, and that was a fun fight when it lasted.
Yeah, for sure. And well, and I like I said, dude, a lot of people want to argue about this and want to like I know, dude, it sucks. Shannon Briggs was the lineal heavyweight champion. I know, I know, I know. It's weird. And when you do a little lineup of the lineal heavyweight champions, he stands out and you're like, what? I don't make up the fucking rules, bro. It just is what it is. So,
There's
but yeah, that's Lennox Lewis wound up picking up the lineal heavyweight championship in a nice little shootout with Shannon Briggs. But yeah, Briggs didn't really deserve to win that fight.
I'm gonna tell you, I don't know if someone had this pre-made just in case he won or whatever it was. But you remember the ringside belts, like the ones
Yeah.
out of the actual catalog that was just the fake leather, or maybe it was with the the plates on it and the same
Yeah.
shit. Kind of looked like a bootleg Ring magazine one, but
Mm.
someone had one of those made for Shannon Briggs because he's posing with it in the KO magazine, but it's like posing with it immediately after the fight, after the Foreman fight, and it's a ringside title belt, like literally one from the catalog, and on the plates it says Shannon Briggs and it says lineal heavyweight champion or heavyweight champion of the world or something like that on it. So I'm assuming
Yeah,
some,
yeah, because they, as I'm sure you know,
yeah,
they usually like the belt that the winner gets is the
yeah.
other dude's belt and they have to give it
And
back.
I don't even think they had like the Ring magazine was even giving out belts during that Foreman time like that during that era
Yeah,
when it
they
was like
didn't start again and I think till the early 2000s.
exactly. So one of his hangers ons probably just got there. I was like, "Yo, Shannon, look what I got made for you, man." He was like, "Oh, okay."
Well, and it's like that story that Bernard Hopkins tells about the Felix Trinidad fight where they had the Sugar Ray Robinson trophy afterward, and he said that they had Trinidad's name already on it, and that they had to like basically take it back and redo it and shit like that because they already had Tito's name on it.
I mean,
Which
I remember for that fight, I was looking forward to seeing that trophy because I heard about it, and I never saw it after that fight. I don't recall seeing it. Do you?
that's what Hopkins said. Hopkins said that he didn't get it right immediately after the fight because they already had Trinidad's name on it, according to him.
That's funny. Um, well, speaking of lineal champions, let's fast forward. Uh, you said this fight happened in '97.
Yeah,
All right. So speaking of lineal champions, fast forward 11 years to I want to say 2008 when Joel Casamayor defended his lineal lightweight championship against Jose was
Jose
it Jose
Armando Santa Cruz. Yeah,
yeah.
That was a bad one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I don't remember we talked about this either on the show or off the show. I don't remember exactly but I do remember mentioning this to you that I watched that card. Gosh, now I'm gonna have to bring it up because I don't remember what card it was. Oh yeah, okay, that's right. It was uh Kodo Mosley.
Mhm.
I watched that card at a friend's house up in LA, and it just so happened that Rudy Hernandez, his niece was there with us. And so, and Rudy was his team was the one who was training Jose Armando Santa Cruz. And they were fucking losing it, dude, after that decision. Cause I mean, Cepillo, dude, that guy was a tough fucking guy to fight. I mean, this was obviously toward the end of his career and everything, but he had a really difficult style. Casamayor, that is. A lot of people called him a dirty fighter. I think he kind of straddled the line. There were some fights where he was kind of dirty though. But yeah, dude, he had a real tough style, good boxer puncher. Uh, one of the kind of Cuban stylists who had a lot of success as a pro and kind of bucked that trend of them underperforming as a lot of people stereotype. But obviously, like I said, he was kind of coming toward the end of his career. He'd had a lot of difficulty, gone through a lot of wars, or really tough nip and tuck battles to this point. Jose Armando Santa Cruz was kind of like a top contender, but not really thought of as somebody who was like a potential future champion, maybe not like a shoe in or whatever. But yeah, dude, he really whacked the shit out of Casamayor that night, and
Yeah,
Casamayor had a hell with his style. Like he just could not figure him out all night. And then when they announced the winner, it was like,
yeah.
say that again?
I haven't watched that fight in a long time. I mean, I caught a couple of like highlights of it last night when I was thinking about it, but I haven't watched like the full thing, and it was bad. I know Dan Rayfield said it was the single worst decision he ever witnessed ringside, and everyone else was just absolutely flabbergasted by it. And
It was bad.
it's tough, man, because a guy like Jose Armando Santa Cruz was one of those guys that like he wasn't a top contender. He was a fringe contender. You know what I mean? Like anytime he really stepped up, he usually would give a good account of himself, but he lost. But like having that one chance where you get a chance to become lightweight champion of the world, like the guy that beat the guy that beat the guy that beat the guy. And clearly, like again, before we talked about Oshaki and others, and clearly beat him, like no shadow of a doubt, have that and get it taken away from you, that deflates the shit out of you. That really takes something out of you. And his career never really recovered from that either. You know what I mean? Like I know um soon after he fought that dude who looked like he was 80, Antonio Pitalua,
Yeah.
and we got stopped by him. And then eventually Zab Judah like wrecked him too, I think on pay-per-view or something, but like that was just bad. That was a really, really god awful decision. And like whenever those happen too, it just almost like you throw up in your mouth a little bit too, and you wonder how you're gonna recover for the rest of the night because you can't stop thinking about that one.
Well, and just bringing up the Wikipedia or the wiki page on BoxRec for the fight, looking at the CompuBox stats, which chill out, Bob Arum. I'm not sitting here relying on them. But look, dude, I even remember. It's funny. We're kind of coming full circle, even just right now with me making this comment.
Mhm.
Because I remember when I first started this podcast, I used to fucking do that shit with James Foley, and we had you on as a guest.
Right.
And I don't remember if it was immediately before or after some fight, but it was like around some fight that you had been working, and you talked to us about it. And I remember even making this comment then, dude. Like CompuBox and Punch Stats are a tool. You shouldn't be using them as a basis to argue who won or didn't win a fight. Watch the fight yourself. Like that's the best thing you can do. Just looking at the punch stats is, it's just a tool. It's an extra tool and that's it. But nonetheless, just so Bob Arum doesn't get all mad when I mention this, but the CompuBox stats for this fight, dude, there's a pretty decent disparity. Jose Armando Santa Cruz almost doubled the connects, didn't quite double the throne. He threw 801. Joel Casamayor threw 502. That's a significant difference, but when you almost double the connects, that's a very significant fucking difference, in a high level fight. That's pretty tough to argue that the dude getting connects doubled and getting outthrown is winning that fight.
Absolutely, man. I was just it was awful. And when it comes to that type of thing, like Casamayor was on the receiving end of some questionable decisions on his career too. Like, don't get me wrong, that people wondered if some people thought he was robbed against Jose Luis Castillo, even though that was a genuinely close fight. And there was other fights too, like the Freitas fight, also that some people thought he might have been robbed
That's
in.
true. That's a good point. Yeah. I thought he won that fight.
Yeah. But I mean, he would bring that upon himself for making those fights so damn close. Because, like you said, everything was so nip and tuck with him. And but by that point, yeah, he was washed. So I mean, he definitely got an absolute like very lucky to get that decision. But the thing about a guy like Casamayor too is that like he's not going to be humble about it. He was always a very arrogant type guy, and his cornermen were always arrogant too, and just kind of gave off like a nasty demeanor, kind of like like the way he would fight. You know what I mean? The way he went in there and he didn't mind hitting you and with the elbow on you or a headbutting you or grinding you around as he did shit. And I can't imagine they were sitting there and be like, yeah, we didn't deserve to win that fight after it was over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't happen very often and you
Yeah.
don't expect it from anybody. Um, but yeah, that was a pretty bad. That's a good point. I totally actually forgot about that one. That was a pretty bad decision for sure.
Totally.
Let's see. I got time for one more in me.
Okay.
It's a pretty good one though. And before I actually bring that up, dude, so I was looking at a quick list because I wanted to just research and see if there was any funny memories that like got jogged or whatever. And one that did get jogged for me, even though I didn't think this fight was a robbery personally, I thought it was a very close fight. Lamont Peterson, Amir Khan. Again, I just wanted to bring this up really quick because I totally forgot about the guy in the black hat. You remember that?
Guy in the
Do you
black
remember
hat.
that shit?
Which one?
You might
Oh,
have even worked as so Lamont Peterson versus Amir Khan. You might have
oh,
even worked that shit. So you might not even know, like, but so again, this isn't even the fight that I was talking about
I
bringing
did
up.
work that one. I did work that one actually.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
isn't even
yeah, that
the
was on HBO. Absolutely, yeah. All I
yeah.
worked on con fights during that time.
I didn't think it was a robbery at all. So it's not the fight I'm mentioning. It was for whatever reason. It was when I looked on Reddit, this was one of the fights somebody brought up, and I was like, that wasn't a robbery. It was a really close fight. But it just jogged a memory for me because I remember in the fucking days after the fight, there was like a controversy be- because there was somebody in a black hat that was ringside and
Mhm.
was supposedly handing things to one of the commissioner between rounds. And so there was a big controversy because all the British people were like, the person in the black hat, the person in the black hat caused Amir Khan to get robbed,
Oh
you
shit.
know, and the person in the black hat was handing secret scores to her, something along those lines, dude. So anyway, I don't know why, but just that memory got jogged and was like, oh my God, I forgot about the dude in the black hat.
I mean, yeah, that's like stay off of Reddit and those conspiracy theory things, bro. Them people, motherfuckers are wild.
Yeah, wild. Anyway,
There
just
was there
it
was a
wasn't a
whole
robbery. It was just funny.
there was a whole page someone I found out on sometimes I check like the history message boards and someone put on a thing they were like was Salvador Sanchez murdered? And I'm like, wait, what? And so I clicked on it and someone was like, I read over here on a couple of pages. Then I found an account on YouTube that talked about apparently Sanchez owed money to some cartels and blah, blah, blah. And they think that they took him out and made it look like an accident. And I'm just like, bro, go outside and touch grass, man. What the fuck?
Why would they make it look like an accident? If they, wouldn't they want? Don't you send a message? Don't.
I don't know. Oh, please, man. Let the poor guy rest in peace. You know what I mean? And then
Yikes!
going over there was like, and they were just like, yeah. And then I looked into it, and there are like YouTube pages that have like gone into it talking about this conspiracy of Salvador Sanchez potentially being murdered. Heard it here, folks.
Wow, I never heard that before, and that's pretty wild.
Absolutely out of the fucking mind. Like, what do you mean?
Wow. No, no, he wasn't. I'm pretty sure he just died in a
Pretty
fucking.
sure he was just,
It's like I'm pretty sure it was a Porsche or something like that. It was like some fast car or something that he just
exactly. He was
crashed.
happened to be speeding on the highway. He tried to pass one truck, navigated that by accident, and crashed into another one. Just
How many YouTube videos have we seen where somebody just thrashes their car? I mean, come on, dude. It happens. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
wild. But here's another wild one that I got. And this is definitely one of the worst decisions of all time. Amateur fight, but it was that bad. And it
Oh,
deprived Roy Jones of a gold medal. I mean, would anything have changed really? I don't know. I mean, would he have changed as a fighter or anything? Probably not. But what might have changed had Roy Jones gotten the gold medal against Park Si-hun in 1988 is that he might have been more willing to go and travel and, take on challenges that he was accused of avoiding during his pro career, and that he later said was because he got robbed at the Olympics and then therefore didn't want to take risks. Which,
mhm.
on one hand, I don't blame him. On the other hand, that's a fairly bogus fucking excuse because some of the fighters that he missed out on fighting were good fighters at the time, especially. But anyway, the decision was really bad because if you want to talk about a fight where there's just one fighter just putting a fucking whooping from one fucking end of the fight to the other on the other fighter, this is that fight. Roy Jones is just tapping the shit out of this guy fucking relentlessly the entire time, barely gets hit and loses a decision and somehow doesn't go nuts. Somehow doesn't just start fucking punching people left and right, but the look on his face is like heartbreaking, dude, because he's just like he's just looking around like, wow, all right.
Yeah.
Because that dude started boxing when he was a small child and lived under like a tyrannical father as his trainer who put him through hell, whose
Yep.
Roy, even to this day, is still not over. He's still messed up about that. And wound up, and like I said earlier, the culmination of everything that you've trained for and worked for in your life, just yoink, fuck. And
So,
then I don't remember what exactly happened with the judges, but I know there was something. But anyway, fuck. That was
I
that
mean,
was a really bad one.
that was a lot of corruption going on out there. I mean, it's always been like that in the Olympics and like amateur scene where there's been like, a lot of seedy things on the underbelly and all that. And if you really follow amateur boxing, I mean, your eyes will be absolutely awakened
It's
by the
like
shit.
even worse now, yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I do remember in '84 that there was a Korean fighter who did like a protest after one of his fights, like he felt he won, and he did like a sit down, right, in the ring, in the middle of the ring. And I'm not sure if this has anything to do with what ends up happening with Roy Jones. We're like, oh, you're gonna fuck us, we'll fuck you type deal one day type thing. But I know like some of those couple of Korean fighters felt like they were not like judged well at the '84 Olympics. And I know I'm pretty sure one of them did like in the middle of the ring sit down after the fight to protest, and it was just like fuck this, and whatever, right? So yeah, fast forward to '88, and I know again there was already like rumblings and stuff about things happening and might be like preference to like judging and all that type of stuff, but like you don't think that someone is just gonna blatantly get robbed that badly on fucking television like that. Like this isn't like a fight on ABC back then, or like a featherweight title fight or a lightweight title fight or something that like only a small amount of people are going to watch or actually care about. This was the Olympics, all right? People were very heavily into the Olympics, especially in the '80s, all right? The way the USA dominated in '84 and the way when it was held in LA and all that, and 4 years later, Olympic fever was still doing good, and boxing was still a popular sport in the Olympics. That was more accessible to watch as it was than before it became like in the '90s when you had no idea and that became a running gag where you had no idea where you could be able to watch it. You know what I mean? Oh, 11 o'clock, you might be able to catch it on this channel. At 2:30 in the morning, you might be able to catch one fight on this channel or some bullshit like that. Like by '88, I'm pretty sure you were still able to catch Olympic boxing on normal times as it was being shown, like with other, stuff like that. And these guys, again, maybe not as personal as like the '84 team became in terms of like connection with the country and all that, but these guys were still well known. And for Roy Jones making it to the finals of the Olympics, about to fight for the gold medal, clearly this is going to be shown on network television. Millions of people are going to be watching this. They watching him clearly get robbed. Like it's not just a kind of like, oh, kind of like, no, this was an out and out straight up robbery. Three dudes who were clearly blind. I don't even want to say blind because I'm pretty sure Ray Charles or Stevie Wonder, any of those dudes would have scored that fight for Jones. Like it's just bad. It was bad, bad, bad. Absolute corruptness being shown right there on the air for everyone. And my boss, the founder of Compubox, Bob Canobio, he was there. All right. They were hired for the Olympics that day. They did all the fights, him and his partner Logan, and their stats showed it was overwhelmingly for Jones. Like there was no ifs, ands, or way or buts about it. And because of that fight, I'm pretty sure that was the reason why they changed it to that stupid ass scoring that they did anyway, for the '92 Olympics, which they kept for a number of years after that, right?
Yeah, the kind of weird points like
Yeah, where everyone like had to be in sync with each other, clicking a button that
yeah, and so you'll sit there and see like 9 punches land and like you look down and the points don't change and you're like,
Yeah,
what the fuck, dude?
yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking weak as fuck. It was and like you said, dude, a lot of it was the expectation coming from the 1984 team. And well, going from 1976 and then kind of a lull and then a big surge again from 1984 and the expectations were high. Riddick Bowe, Michael Carbajal, Ray Mercer, Roy Jones, all these guys were top level fighters, top international amateur fighters, and were expected to perform very well. Some did, and that's not to say that like a silver medal or anything is bad, but there was much more was expected, and there should have at least been one more gold medal for sure.
1,000%. I mean, so who won the gold that year? Ray Mercer won gold. I think Carbajal won gold, didn't he? Or did he win silver?
I think he won silver.
He won
And
silver?
Lennox Lewis won, well, not for USA, obviously, but Lennox
No,
Lewis
no, but
won
I mean for
gold.
USA, then I think Ray Mercer was the only gold medalist.
Damn, am I
No, I mean that might have been somebody else. I don't know. I have to think about that.
now I'm about to I'll tell you in just a sec, but um
Hembrick was on that team.
yeah, so okay, yeah. Kennedy McKinney,
Kenny McKinney, that's right. You got
yep,
him.
and Andrew Maynard. That was the other one we were missing.
Oh, Maynard. All right.
Yep.
That was a good team actually out there. I mean, considering.
A
But
very good team,
Roy,
dude.
but then the other thing too, I don't know if you mentioned this, but and this shows you too how bad everything is. Roy wins the silver medal, and almost like a consolation prize, they give him the Val Barker Trophy, which is the outstanding boxer trophy of the whole tournament. Sorry, bro, we fucked up here.
Yeah, how are you about to win the Oh man, yeah. Yeah, I mean that's just about as blatant as you could get as far as handing a fucking, a win to somebody who doesn't deserve it. Again, nothing against the fighter. He didn't do it, but damn.
It's horrible. It's literally one of the most horrible.
I don't think I could take that. I don't think that I could accept that medal. Like I would be like, I
Sure.
mean, he had no fucking choice to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, respectfully, a Korean fighter in Seoul being
Yeah.
awarded the gold medal. What is he going to say? No. But, damn, dude.
But he knew. He absolutely knew. And just kind of went into hiding with it afterwards too. And that wasn't the only time you saw dudes get screwed after that. Fast forward to '92 Olympics, Eric Griffin got absolutely robbed in his fight. '96 Olympics, Floyd Mayweather getting robbed in his fight. Mayweather would have won the gold medal that year, absolutely. You know what I mean, it was nice that the dude from Thailand, Samluk Kamsing, had a cool story, being the first fighter from Thailand to win a gold medal and for their country. I don't know. He might have been the first person from Thailand to win a gold medal in the Olympics. I have no idea, but um, that made for a cool backstory and all that. But Floyd got absolutely robbed. Fernando Vargas, I think, got caught on the short end of a really bad decision that in the Olympics that year too, and a couple of others. You know what I mean? But that's always been the running case for American fighters and just Olympic boxing in general. That like these guys who at some point had been world champions as amateurs and dominated other competitions somehow end up losing by a point or two in the Olympics.
Yeah, dude.
For
Well,
the guys
and
that they've already beaten 2, 3 times already.
yeah, and the scoring system in general in the amateurs and the way that it's handled has really
Yeah,
gone downhill. Like there used to be an entire NCAA system, and uh, the way that amateur athletics, much less boxing, was handled in the U.S. was used to be way different. And in a lot of ways, it's better because there's been far more recognition. Not to go too not down too far a rabbit hole, but more recognition about uh, athletes being exploited and assaulted and things like that, which is great. The recognition that is obviously, but as far as the organization and as far as the level of care and the level of and the funding, way down, and it's awful.
absolutely. I know we're like running out of time, so I'll just mention some other ones we could have brought up. But we have like Muhammad Ali, Jimmy Young, which was a blatantly bad decision. And regardless of how you feel about Young ducking his head outside the ropes, which certainly didn't help matters on his end, he beat Ali that night. You got Lennox Lewis against Evander Holyfield in their first fight. Obviously, one of the worst decisions of all time. You know what I mean? Like, and one that was so bad that like the first thing everybody does is just look at Don King and blame it on him because like what else are you gonna do, right?
Yeah.
um, even though it wasn't an actual decision, just as controversial as it ended, look at the first Michael Dokes Mike Weaver fight and how badly that ended, where it looked like everyone thought that that was a fucking corrupt ending. And I don't think it was. I mean, considering the timing of it with like Doku Kim and Ray Mancini, but still. But like the ending of it too was just funny because the crowd chants first. They go, bullshit, bullshit. And then you hear, Don King sucks. Don King sucks.
Well, and when you first started talking to when we first opened up the show, what I was going to say, and I forgot to say, over the course of the show, was that you mentioned corruption, and I'm not going to disagree because we talked about the IBC, we talked about New York, and there has been a lot of corruption in boxing. However, a lot of these other small, situation by situation, generally speaking, I tend to go with fucking idiocy over corruption and poorly trained officials rather than like there was some conspiracy. And I know that's not what you're saying, but like, yeah, I think there tends to be that immediate jump to like, oh, somebody got together and there's some behind the scenes, whatever. Sometimes that probably does happen, but often it's just somebody being a really shitty official.
Totally. And again too, and like you said, the other thing that gets sad is that like these guys get affected by this in the long run. The last one I'll bring up, well, I'll bring up two more. So you got the first fight also, if you want to go way back, between Kid Gavilan and Billy Graham, which in its own self has a lot of controversy because that was during the heart of the mob era, and Gavilan was a mobbed up champion. Graham clearly won that fight, got jobbed badly in it, and that caused a ton of controversy. And then go ahead.
Some like the history dudes don't even think that Gavilan ever won a legitimate championship fight.
I mean, without knocking the guy out, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like they basically believe every decision he ever fucking won was like, some mob decision.
And considering when he lost it, it was a mob decision too when he lost it to Saxton. But Johnny Saxton. But then the other one too, and this one, when I talk about affecting fighters so badly, this guy actually retired after that fucking fight. Dave Tiberi against James Toney.
Yeah, man, that's definitely a bad. James had a couple of wins in the 90s that were kind of shaky, dude. And
Sure.
that was probably the
That was the shakiest. He had no business winning
probably the worst one, yeah, because he didn't win that fight.
at all. And he looked bad. I mean, like Tony was struggling at 160. I know that, like to make it. And clearly, as he moved up to 168, like you saw the talent really come through again. But like he struggled against Reggie Johnson. I think that was a split decision. He got dropped in that one, almost lost that.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
probably the worst we ever saw him actually get hurt.
sure, oh yeah. And then the Tiberi fight where he just got out hustled. Tiberi wasn't a better fighter than Tony. He wasn't as talented as Tony. He just out hustled the shit out of that fight. But
Yeah,
effective, not like Conceição did against Foster. It was like he had Tony on the ropes and just worked him and landed and just generally beat him.
excuse me. Yeah, another one real quick that the anniversary passed not that long ago, and it was also a pretty bad decision was Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Sturm.
Oh yeah.
And again, I think a lot of these too is like the stakes are important because the stakes were that this was a fight that was supposed to set up the Bernard Hopkins fight for him because it was for the only title that Hopkins didn't have. And so the assumption was like, here's some European bum that Oscar De La Hoya can knock off. I even said this is one of the few times where I called that shit, but there was video of Felix Sturm making the rounds and the video traders, and I was like, Oscar's gonna have a tough time with this guy. I'm telling you. And he sure as hell did. He lost that fight and then goes up afterwards. I don't know what went wrong tonight. Fucking guy. But
He
yeah,
looked
that was
ugly. He was wearing like just generic look. I don't know. He just looked off the whole time, and he got outboxed out everything. He did not look like he was well at that weight. Wasn't adjusted well.
yeah, he
Thought it
looked
might.
pudgy. He looked like
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. He looked pudgy and looked like shit. Exactly. You know.
And then the only other one I wanted to bring up, just because it's worth bringing up for the absolute fucking meltdown Teddy had afterward, and because of the fact that there was an official there ringside showing everybody that commissioners don't know a fucking thing about the sport that they're literally there to oversee, and that was Courtney Burton winning
Yes.
somehow winning a decision over Emmanuel Augustus, and I'm pretty sure it was Michigan, which is historically not, like, I mean, like, decades back it was a fine commission. Decades now, no, not at all. And that was so awful that Emmanuel Augustus got a fucking point taken away for spinning at one point, and the whole thing, dude, was just an awful, atrocious. And then he loses a split decision or a majority decision or whatever the fuck it was, and then Teddy Atlas blows a gasket, and then the commissioner comes over to try to like correct him, and Teddy
Mhm.
has to explain to him what the difference between a majority decision and a split decision is on air in front of everybody, and the official's like sitting down going like, uh-huh, uh-huh, oh yeah, oh, is that what it is? That's amazing. It's like, whoa. Wow. Okay then. So that entire event, and it should be up on YouTube still.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Good watching.
I mean, I'm yeah, I love when there was like a good blowout at the end of a fight. Like Evander Holyfield Von Bean was not close whatsoever. All right, we know this, and it wasn't
And
anything
his
about
team
like
just losing
yeah.
it.
Oh yeah, at the end of the fight, like Butch Lewis getting in there and just losing his shit because Bean, I don't know if Holyfield hit him behind the head or he did something. And they were claiming it was bullshit, and they were like, yeah, whatever. And um, yeah, so Butch Lewis starts losing his mind and starts arguing with the referee. And Jim Gray is there trying to argue, is trying to interview the referee. And Butch Lewis is talking over and over. And Jim Gray's like, Butch, I'm going to stop this interview if you keep on interrupting me. Butch, you need to stop. And Butch like, that's all right. That's all right. And the referee was like, shut up, Butch. You need to stop talking, Butch. And then finally the referee goes, shut up, bitch. He says it to me. He goes,
It's
shut
like,
up,
you
bitch.
wanted to say that the whole time, bro. You finally just let it go.
And he finally goes, he says, shut up, bitch, let me talk. You hear Butch go, what'd you call me? What'd you say? What'd you say? And Jim's between both of them trying to push them away, looking so awkward.
Yeah,
And Butch
dude.
Lewis is like, I'm gonna make sure you never ref again. I'm gonna make sure you never work again. We'll be back. You ain't gonna hear the rest of it.
Nobody like Jim Gray to poorly handle a controversial moment. Cause he wasn't gonna Larry Merchant those motherfuckers and like shove them out or something, dude. He was just gonna go, with his fucking microphone back and forth like an idiot.
That's what the ref said. He says, shut up, bitch, get out of my face. That's what he yelled out. And Butch was like, what'd you say? What'd you call me? I'm just like, oh, this shit's crazy.
Jesus, dude.
But this is why we're fans of the sport. I don't know if there was no controversial decisions. I don't think they would rev us up as much as they as just like everything being on the up and up.
It's a double-edged sword, bro. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It's like, on one hand, we hate it and we want to see fighters get the credit that they deserve and that they worked for, but the controversy and the drama and
Yeah,
the lack of predictability with a lot of the shit that's going on here, I'm not gonna lie, that kind of adrenaline burst and whatever it is part of what makes the sport so great, because you never watch a Super Bowl and then one team wins 40-12,
yeah,
but the one that scored 12 fucking wins. Like, you
yeah,
never
exactly.
see that. But somehow you'll see that in boxing.
And then
It's
everything just
amazing.
explode afterwards. You see a guy like Lou Duva, as he did during the first Ramirez fight, Whitaker Ramirez fight, which was another awful decision. And if you watch that one too, because like the original announcing was in the announcers were in French, and so you hear them doing the announcer, and even the English announcers, the guys that were the commentators, they had no idea what was going on because like the audio wasn't great over there, and you're saying what the A's and there's like, and you hear some cheering, they're like, oh, I'm not sure what's going on, and all of a sudden you see in the distance Lou Duva stomping around. Starting to go like that, pulling here and all that. And they're like, oh, Lou Duva seems to be angry. Well, why is that? Ramirez, I think, has won. But Ramirez is that decision winner. And then you see like, oh, they're like, what the hell? And then you see, Ramirez getting picked up, everyone cheering, and Duva about to blow a fucking gasket, and everyone
And
else
that
losing
was
it.
one guarantee you always had, was that Lou
Yeah.
Duva was about to do something.
But I think that was their cue to know that Whitaker lost because they couldn't really hear what was happening or notice it. And then they see Lou Duva like literally bouncing off the ropes like a fucking King Kong Bundy.
Lou Duva's the canary in the coal mine about the robbery. He's just when you see Lou Duva going off, that's how you know.
Absolutely. They're spitting and jowling and screaming like Captain Lou Albano in his prom.
Good old Lou, rest in peace.
Sure.
Man, yeah, the controversy, like we said, it's not good, but it is part of what makes the sport just wild and enjoyable, dramatic, ridiculous. So I appreciate it, dude, because it is sometimes kind of frustrating going back through some of this shit, but also fun.
1,000%. Yeah.
For sure, man. Appreciate it. Everybody, thank you so much. If you listen in, we appreciate you. So go ahead and subscribe on whatever podcast app you listen on. Give us a rating, leave a comment. We appreciate that. If you watch on YouTube, comment on there, subscribe, and those things as well there. Also appreciate. As far as social media goes, we're hanging around Instagram and those kinds of places, but as you know, at least on a personal level. But the show itself, Knuckles and Gloves Podcast, is on Facebook and Instagram, especially. Go ahead and find us there. And Aris, we'll talk soon, bro.
Have a good one, yeah.
Later, everybody.